First item on the agenda is the pledge. Supervisor Hanvelt, would you please lead us?
Ladies and gentlemen, the flag of our country. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First thing is oral communication. The public may speak on any item that's not printed on the agenda. No action may be taken by the board. Beautiful. Clerk, could you please read the consent calendar?
Minutes of the meeting held January 21st, 2014, approving a revision of jail program specialist class specifications. Item number 3 has been pulled off and will be heard at a later date. Declaring various equipment as not required for public use and surplus, authorizing the deputy purchasing agent to dispose of the property through a one-day sale to be held on February 22nd, 2014 at 8 a.m. at 101 Hospital Road and 10 a.m. at 229 West Jackson Street in Sonora, California. Approving the appointment of Tracy Riggs as the alternate board member to the California State Association of Counties Excess Insurance Authority Board of Directors. Approving the reappointments of Shelley Davis King to the Historic Preservation Review Commission. Approving the appointment of Sean Brennan to the Tuolumne County Youth Commission. Approving the reappointment of Tyler Somerset, Leah Cassis, and Kathy Peacock to the Tuolumne County Commission on Aging. Reappointment of Jennifer Sorensen and Kurt Ford to the Tuolumne Resource Conservation District. And the reappointment of Susan Thompson and Judy Finley to the Area 12 Agency on Aging. And as the Air Pollution Control District, approving the reappointment of Jack Sauls to the Tuolumne County Air Pollution Control District Hearing Board.
Thank you. Would any board member like to pull any specific items? Seeing none, are there any questions? I would ask for public comment. Seeing none.
Move on the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and second on the floor. Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Could the clerk please read item 12?
Consideration of approving a certificate of recognition commending Bill Caldera for receiving a meritorious service award from the California Emergency Medical Services Authority.
Thank you. Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Steve Boyack from the Human Services Agency. Mr. Bill Caldera started his career as a paramedic in Tuolumne County in 1979. And in 1986, Bill became a division manager for Manteca District Ambulance, overseeing ambulance operations here in Tuolumne County. Later, in 2009, Bill was promoted to Chief Operating Officer for Manteca District Ambulance, by where he oversees operations here in Tuolumne County and in Manteca. And your board is aware that Manteca District Ambulance has been a contractor to the county for over 25 years, providing day-to-day operational support as well as personnel support. Bill has strived to improve the quality and provide emergency medical services profession, and has been an advocate for providers here in this county for a very long time. On December 4th of 2013, the state of California Emergency and Medical Services Authority, recognized Bill's accomplishments by presenting him with a Merit Service Award. The Merit Service Award was for outstanding service and leadership during the Rim Fire. The citation by which he was presented that award is attached to your staff report. And I would like to just read one sentence from that citation, which is the very last sentence that I think culminates what Mr. Caldera means to emergency medical services here in Tuolumne County. It simply states, Mr. Caldera has enabled himself and his organization to go above and beyond the normal day-to-day operations to provide assistance to the entire community, and therefore much deserving of this special recognition. So, Mr. Chairman, it is respectfully recommended that the board approve a certificate of recognition commending Bill Caldera on receiving this Merit Service Award from the state of California for outstanding service and leadership during the Rim Fire.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I witnessed firsthand, as a lot of you did, Mr. Caldera there and all the rest of the people who are working, but this guy really has his stuff together. He knows what he's about, and he's a great leader, and we're very privileged to have him. So I want to say thank you, and when you're ready, I'd be more than happy to make that motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to add that, my dealings with Mr. Caldera have always been positive. He's quick to respond to questions. If you got a problem, he'll fix it, and I certainly appreciate it. We're really lucky to have him here at Tuolumne County.
Any other comments? I'll just say a quick word also. Bill, he's a good guy. He's somebody that you can work with. As John stated, he does things when you need to get them done, and he's a Tuolumne guy. Comes from good people, and in my book, that's a good thing. So,
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
with that,
Well, hold it. Maybe we ought to reconsider.
I'd like a motion.
Okay, I move enthusiastically to support the recognition of the
Second.
certificate.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously, and I'm going to bring us down.
I'll be brief. You know me well enough to see we could do a class right now, but we won't. So it's been a pleasure working with the county. Even when I was just a young Tuolumne boy growing up over there when I was still scared to go past Jamestown, the ambulance, and nothing against it, was operated by the mortuaries. And I have to say that I got into this as a career mindset. Left my slivers at Fiberboard, and I've never looked back. And I was very blessed to have this opportunity with you as a board. And I was trying to get some recognition for us during the rimfire for my wonderful staff here and in Manteca. And I think I accomplished that, but when I received that award, I was quite surprised. And most of the things that you saw me doing is our headquarters at Stryker Court is the EOC. And so it's more of a greeter feng shui, realize that we're a small little dot on a map, and we can do more good for more people by getting others to come in and work under our direction and leadership. And I'm very also proud to say that my staff hung in there through that whole duration. We were able to keep our costs down. As far as the enterprise fund, that's another critical thing with healthcare reimbursement, and I'm sure you'll be following that. And it does take concern to realize that we do hire Sonora Wildcats occasionally also, but there are a lot of bears on the bus, okay? So thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. All right.
And a good sense of humor, too.
Yeah, that helps.
And he also plays a pretty mean game of donkey basketball. That's right.
All right. Let's see. We are going to hear item, I believe, 20 at this time in the interest of getting staff to some other business they have to attend to. So could the clerk please read item 20?
Consideration of approving 2 professional service agreements for consulting, plan checking, and inspection services with Four Leaf, Inc. and Bureau of Veritas North America.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official. I know we're really busy today, so I'll keep this brief. From 2006 2011, the Building and Safety Division held contracts for outside plan checking services. We had 2 contracts with third-party vendors and 1 contract with a local engineer. Due to the downturn in the economy, we had let those contracts expire. At this point, as we see that there's a few large projects on the horizon that we are not by law allowed to check without an engineering degree, and an upturn in the economy that actually at some point will mean that we will need additional help, we have moved forward with securing an RFQ and potential contracts for those services. These contracts are not unusual in building and safety divisions. They are a stopgap measure primarily. In other jurisdictions in the Bay Area, they rely heavily on third-party vendors. In this case, what we did was we went out to 5 different companies January 7th, and we received 4 responses. Those were graded by a review committee with heavy emphasis on experience in rural communities and the ability to provide the services we need for some of our larger county projects. And the 2 highest scores were Four Leaf Inc. and Bureau Veritas North America. The funding for the services provided taken directly from the plan check fees. Building permit fee for residential, 50% of that fee, and for commercial, 65% of that is the funds we collect for plan review services. So when a third-party vendor is contracted for, they generally would contract for 70% of that portion. So if a permit fee is $500, the plan check for residential from us would be $250. They would see 70% of that for their services. This not only allows us to speed up larger projects and expedite economic development projects, but also gives the customer the option, if they want to negotiate directly with a third party and provide us the results, they can go to these 2 companies immediately and negotiate directly with them if need be. Is there any questions?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, looking at the contract, I really didn't see an out clause. The length of this contract is for 4 years? 5 years. And how do we get out of it if we decide we don't?
There is a termination section where either side can agree that they no longer want to participate.
Okay. I did read that, but I didn't see anything specific there. But
And the other thing is, we send plans to them. If for some reason we choose not to send plans to one company, we're not obligated to.
that was my next
Yeah,
question.
there's no minimum amount of work that we send to them.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Board question? Supervisor Hanvelt?
I want to understand this correctly, in what you said. This is, you called it a stopgap. That means you do the work internally when you can, and you send it out when you're overloaded. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. How much time does this add to the process?
It generally doesn't. We intentionally contract with companies that can provide the services in similar timeframes to our own. In this case, Four Leaf Inc.'s standard process is 10 days, which is generally what we see. Bureau Veritas offers 7-day turnaround. So once we factor in a day of processing and routing to them and receiving that taking a day, it works out to about the same amount of time we would normally spend on a project.
Okay.
Board question? I have a question. Currently, with the DPRT and the dashboard that's been coming out, we monitor the timelines for permits and their processing and so forth. I think, I don't know offhand, is there a line that tracks something like this, say a consultant tracking projects? Because I think in some cases this is something that would be out of our control, but it would be interesting to see, specifically if there are projects that are being farmed out for plan check, if we track those timelines.
There currently are not, but that's something we could add to that report, because as
I think it would be good to keep it separate.
Doug mentioned, we have not used contract services now for the last 3 years.
Yeah, and I think this is a good thing. I know that you guys got overwhelmed at the end of the year with the new code cycle change, and a lot of people just trying to get plans in. And it comes in waves, and so this is a good tool to help keep things moving forward. So with that, I think I'll ask for public comment. And seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contract.
I'll second.
All right, is there comment on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Oliver.
Thank you.
All right, could the clerk please read item 13?
Presentation and update on current drought conditions and related management actions.
All right. Morning, Tracy.
Good morning. Tracy Riggs, County Administrator's Office. Sorry. Sorry, I want to make sure we had that ready when they came up. So on February 4th, your board heard an update on the current drought and water situation, and on that same date, your board also proclaimed a local state of emergency. Since that date, we've continued to work with local water agencies in the state, California Office of Emergency Services. Today, what we'd like to do is bring to you again another update on the water situation. And today we have Tom Seja, who is a general manager with the TUD, and we also have Tom Trott here with Twain Harte Community Services District. Unfortunately, John Sterling with Groveland Community Services District was unable to come to the meeting. However, he does continue to contact me on a continual basis. We stay in communication with each other, and he says right now they're in the same state as they were 2 weeks ago. They are looking at a voluntary water conservation within their district, working with the city and county of San Francisco. And as we have updates, he will continue to send those to me, and I will continue to send those to you. After you hear from Tom this morning, we have a few other items we'd like to share with you, but first we'll go ahead and start with Tom and Tuolumne Utilities District.
Thank you. Morning, Tom.
Good morning, Chairman Royce, members of the board. Before we get started, Lisa's going to hand out a few little documents on the PowerPoint. And I'd also like to thank the board again for passing the emergency resolution. Having the access to the county OES staff and the state OES staff has, I believe, improved and helped the district and therefore the members of our community that we all serve. What I thought I'd do today is just quickly go through the water supply yet again. We've gotten a few raindrops, show you what that does and how it impacted us, and then go into more specifically a plan of action that we've developed that, of course, is evolving, working with Tom at Twain Harte. We will continue to change and react to meet all of our customers' needs the best we can. And for those in the community, this map is really to remind us where we get our water, that we get it from, of course, the Pinecrest Reservoir and then down in Lyons, and that the relative amount of storage is very small and not much for us to work with. And what's important as we get into planning is to understand where the water is treated in our community. The red dots that you see across here all represent surface water treatment plants, and to no surprise, they're all aligned along our ditches. And what's also important as we get moving forward, you'll see over in this corner our access to water in New Melones Reservoir through the pump station. So how are we doing? Well, we got a little bit more rain. We actually have now made it slightly above the 76, 77 drought. Not by a lot, but still inadequate flows to meet our needs. And then in comparison to the last couple of years, normally we get about 32 inches of rain here in Sonora. We got 20 and 22 two previous years, and normal for this time of the year, we would normally have about 22 inches of rain, and so far we've got about 7.4. So about a third of what we would expect. And this estimate shows the diversion we normally take out of the South Fork, a little over 16,000, about 16,500, and current best estimate of what we're going to receive out of a total yield out of the watershed is about 9,000 acre-feet. And that estimate is in concurrence with what PG&E estimates they're going to see. So we've been working with PG&E very closely and continue to get great cooperation and help from them. So how are we going to get by? So obviously, TUD has called for mandatory conservation. We've tightened that up again last week. So when you look at our supply, our normal diversion demand of 16.5, we're looking for some serious conservation out of our customers. We have the blue is the amount of water that's in storage. This hatched area is the amount of snowpack, bringing us up to about the 9,000. Based upon current estimates, both NOAA and PG&E were hoping for February to be normal, which it is turning out not to be. And neither one of them are predicting anything significant to happen. Current estimates have no significant rain for the next 3 weeks. So the concept of a March miracle is becoming less and less likely. Therefore, we're planning on below normal rainfall for the rest of the water year. And what's shown in red is supply that we'll need to acquire from other locations. So where are we going to get it and where are we going to use it? And although this map looks like a little bit like a cartoon, it divides the district up into 3 basic zones. The upper zone, which is everything from Big Hill, Upper Basin, the community of Twain Harte, where Tom will be needing his water, Crystal Falls, Ponderosa, Monte Grande, Tuolumne, that represents roughly about 12,000 customers. Actually closer to 13,500 when I add in Tom's. Connections. So we multiply that times the number of people. That has to survive on water from Lyons. Although we've got a small spring and Tom is working on developing a well to supplement his supply, there's not a lot of other water options for that zone. So our goal is to start using other water supplies as soon as possible, hold the maximum amount of water as high as possible in the system, meaning Lyons and Strawberry, and therefore make that water available for these customers. The middle zone, basically Apple Valley through the Phoenix Lake area, Lambert Lakes, Mona Village, East Sonora, and out towards Ferry, most of those systems were originally developed on wells. Apple Valley and Wards Ferry still have been well-only systems. Although we've converted the East Sonora system over the years to surface water, mostly due to water quality reasons, we're in the process of converting them back and developing new wells in that area to provide that area on go exclusively on groundwater during this time period. So then the lower zone, which you can imagine Columbia, Sonora, Jamestown, is our largest population, and we're looking to develop 3 additional sources of supply. The one that has received some notoriety, of course, is the New Melones pump station, bring water out of New Melones up to the Columbia Water Treatment Plant. The advantage of that is not only does it get directly to one of our water treatment plants, but also allows us to get water into the Table Mountain and the Montezuma ditches, which allows those agricultural customers to still receive their 50% allotment. Additionally, we have the Melvilla well, which is near the Melvilla development. It is does not meet iron and manganese secondary requirements, so we'll be constructing and bringing online a water treatment plant for that location here in the next couple of months. And then the last source is the Limekiln Caverns. We've been in conversation with them and have received verbal approval to access the site for water. We've begun testing, or in the process of trying to get it permitted through the state of California. Both the Melvilla well and the Limekiln Caverns project will require permits from the state of California. And that's where your action by bringing OES in has really helped us, because they can help influence and get those decisions a little bit faster. Is there any questions on this little cartoon? Okay. So the next slide will show you water saved per month. And this one highlights the importance of the change in the fish release at Lyons. We've received a temporary reprieve. Backing up for a second, every dam in the state of California has a required fish release pretty much. Lyons is no different. It's required to release water into the South Fork of the Stanislaus. And through PG&E's work, they've petitioned California Department of Fish and Wildlife and then the FERC to get that changed. And that reduction is the single most easiest conservation thing we can do. Every day that that fish flow is turned down is 2/3 of a day of our current demand for our entire customer base. So that has occurred. It's up for debate until March 15th, and then they'll make the final decision for the rest of the year. And that's crucial for us. And so then the next one you see on the pie, of course, is the New Melones pump station. That will vary based upon demand and reservoir level. Current predictions on the reservoir have our pumps being in the water until sometime in August. Again, through the OES, we're talking about possibly getting into the river and constructing a cofferdam to make sure the pumps have additional supply. But we may need, besides Army Corps permission, we also might need some help from the Bureau on getting access to water. And then the Melville well and the lime kiln caverns make up the rest of it. So that's basically our water supply. So the next issue usually is everybody wants to talk about money. Here's some preliminary estimates. In addition to this $3 million in cost, we estimate we'll have a reduction of approximately $2 million in water sales revenue by our customers meeting our conservation goals. So we, of course, have applied for this money to the OES to see what we can do to get some of that paid for. And this is assuming that we would be able to pump the full 2,400 acre feet out of New Melones, which, depending on demand and need, we may or may not be able to. And that's really where we're at so far this week.
Go ahead.
Just, Tom, on the money that you need, the roughly $5 million, and through your discussions with OES, do you think it's feasible that they're going to come up with something to help?
I believe so. The nice thing, partly because of your action and the district being prepared, we're the first ones in line. So we're the first ones that have submitted a plan and a need and a financial plan for that need. We're the first ones into the system. So I'm hoping that at least we get some bonus points for that. Whether or not they're going to pay for it all, I don't know. Supervisor, when I spoke to the staff, all they would say is, you're first in line, you've done a good job, we don't have any questions, kind of thing.
Okay, and I just might add on, in my opinion, you guys have really done a good job. The information that we've got, we actually had your cartoon a little bit earlier to look at, and I think it's really looking at all the options and tying them together. It's really a good job, and thankful that you guys are doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Supervisor Gray's comments. The state of emergency is only a few weeks old, and a lot of the request for conservation is also only a few weeks old. But your staff, I think it's important that the people of this county know that your staff has been working this problem since late summer of last year. You've been very proactive. You've gotten out there, and you are first in line, and I think that's a very good thing. So I just wanted everybody to know. And a comment that you made that a lot of the public maybe hasn't really recognized yet is that when you go to the public and ask them to conserve water, you're asking them to basically cut back their business with you. Yeah. And that has tremendous economic impacts for your district and everybody you serve. So it's not lightly that you ask people to conserve water. I don't know if a grocery store would ask their customers to buy less food. It's essentially the same thing. So very, very important. And it's also very important to know that this is real, and we do need to pull together as a community to get through this. And there's no guarantee that there'll be a really wet winter next year either. So my question to you is, what are our reservoirs going to look like in January if we don't get significant rain before then?
The way we are setting up our plan is to have about 3,000 acre feet of storage in Pinecrest and Lyons at the end of January of 2015. And the reason for that is being essentially what you're talking about, a lack of surety on what it's going to be like. And A reservoir is not like a bucket or other hard surface. When we get down to the bottom of it, the water quality is going to deteriorate. Particularly of concern in Lyons is going to be what we term as a fish kill. Depending on the water quality, the trout and catfish that are in there may start to die. So we're thinking of, can we aerate that to prolong their life as the nitrogen levels change and the oxygen levels change. So there's a difference between being wet and being really tasty. And we're going to do our best to keep it as tasty as possible. But if it goes into a 5th or 7th year with this kind of rainfall, we'll have to take additional steps.
Thank you for being here, and I know this will be a continuing topic. A couple of questions. By the way, I echo everything said. No point in repeating it, but being ahead of the game is really good, although I'd like to be further ahead, but that's always the way we'd all be. Sure. Tell me, you got approval to start pumping from Maloney's from one agency. What else has to be done before you can start pumping?
Once the contract is signed with the parties involved to pump water out of, in other words, giving us access and we guarantee that we're going to pay for it, we just turn it on. They have pre-14 water rights, and those water rights give them unusual authority. And so my understanding at this point from talking to council is that we don't need anything else other than an agreement to willing seller, willing buyer.
And so when do you expect to start pumping?
I'm hoping, if not this week, next.
Very good. Okay. The next question is, are you seeing any results from the conservation request?
I'm not sure yet. To be honest,
Okay.
Tuesday mornings are all staff meeting at 8:30, and that's when the operations guys would tell me what's going on. So to be honest, I don't know.
Well, I have met people in the public who are taking action, so I'm encouraged by that. I'm just curious if you've seen any of that yet. I just add a reminder to all of us, even those of us living on groundwater like myself,
Yes.
we need to do exactly the same thing. It's not that we have unlimited supply, that we don't even know what ours is, so it's a big deal. And I guess I'm curious, this really isn't a question for you, Tom, it's a question for the other districts. You gave us a total of roughly $5 million in costs. I'm wondering how our other districts are doing. They're part of the equation, too.
Tom, you want to?
Good morning, Tom Trott, General Manager, Twin Arts CSD. Not quite the staggering number that you see up there for TUD, just because we have a fewer customers than them, but we also are being hit. When we ask customers to conserve 50%, quite a bit of our revenue comes from consumptions. That's a roughly, I think, $25,000 hit over the period of this fiscal year. And also, as Tom mentioned, we are looking into developing some alternative water supply with wells, and we're thinking that will be upwards of $75,000, somewhere around there. Fortunately, not quite as expensive as building new pipelines and things like that. That's pretty preliminary, and we haven't quite gotten to the part of what it would cost to run those wells. It would be quite a bit more expensive in energy cost to run those than what we normally do. So that's about where we're at as far as the financial hit right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a quick question, Tom. If you have to go into Maloney's and do a dam, like you were talking about, to kind of, what kind of environmental assessment work will any have to be done, and what do you see as the time frame if you will have to do that?
I'm not sure. So that's why we're starting to talk to Army Corps and Fish and Wildlife now to try to get a feel for what that's going to be to get a head start. I mean, first off, we have to build a road down there.
Yeah, I would think there would be some.
There's an old one, but there's going to be potential for quite a bit of impact. And to be honest, I've never seen the pumps come out of the water before, so I don't know what they're going to look like as far as silt, rock, what's it going to look like. And then the other question is realistically, how much flow is going to be available? Although, portions of that Middle Fork is I believe, a native trout stream, and so the flows are held up pretty high. But really, what's going to be left in Tri-Dam and the other reservoirs above to really supply the water down? So this is our plan today.
It's very complicated.
And it's going to move, it's going to be dynamic, and we're going to have to change. I'm
Yeah,
not.
no, it's going to be very complicated.
It's going to be interesting.
And I echo my fellow supervisors' comments. Really appreciate, again, this is just an example of how you are you're trying to stay ahead of it. And so,
Thank you. And then the last thing I would like to say, Supervisor Rotifer, you have commented more than once about how pleased and strong the county came together. So far, we've had one business with a well that doesn't need it come up and say, you can use my well to help the other business. We've had people with vacant commercial land with wells that they've not used in some period of time, when contacted, say, have access, go ahead, do whatever you need to do. So far, I see it happening already. So I'm happy with that.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, just a couple comments. You've heard about GCSD and what they're doing on the other side of the river, TUD and their efforts, and again, just compliments to Tom and his whole team for what they're doing. But one of my concerns when you see these plans already laid out and so forth, it's great. It's the way to be, and you're doing the good planning. I don't want people to become complacent because they see a plan and think, hey, they got it in the bag. If you listen closely to what Tom's saying, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong, and despite the best efforts of TUD staff. And then some of the TUD-dependent districts like Twain Harte Community Service District and what they're doing, and there's many more of them that TUD is working with directly. So you've heard those kinds of things. I did want to mention one thing on the funding. That's one of the reasons why, from an OES standpoint, we're pitching in there to, on a couple fronts, help with the Maloney's front, lend support to the FERC issue that he's mentioned, which is the easiest thing and one of the most important things that needs to happen. But on the funding, there's right now, we're looking at it it'd be on a county by county basis most likely, and clean me up if I say it wrong, Tracy, but not as likely that we do a statewide declaration. At least the latest stuff coming out of state OES, but county by county. And as been pointed out, we were in early, with our requests, and you can see how those could grow. As you just even described the pumps and the dam and all those kinds of things. There's all kinds of things that could happen that we need assistance, and we're asking for those kinds of things. But at this point, if say we got the California Disaster Assistance Act, if we got that, again, it's usually 75% through the state, and then we'll see how things develop if there's a potential of federal assistance. So that stuff will continue to journey with TUD and all the partner agencies to maximize whatever we can. But part of what I wanted to mention is, what about the rest of the county? Because we've talked about the big agencies. I just wanted to talk about the 138 small water companies that we have in the county that are well dependent. That's something, and the independent well users. We haven't talked a lot about that. We need to do, there's been outreach mainly through TUD, some through our office, but we want to have a system for that. So I've asked Rob through Bev, Rob Costley, our environmental health director that works in that world, to become the liaison to work with the water companies and the state, because those are governed by either the PUC or the public health department. But we need someone who understands that world, who can work with our local companies and with those state agencies. And I have asked if at the next meeting, the March 4th meeting, we can have a little presentation specifically on wells, not just for those companies, but individual wells, so there's better understanding by the public as to how wells work, how underground aquifers work, how they can drain and be replenished, so that there's better education on it. But we do need to get the message out to all those agencies. The key word is conserve. It may not just be for their own sake, it could be for their neighbor's sake, and not just for this year, but the following year, almost like what Tom's describing, in the reservoir. So we want to step that up, have a way to coordinate that, and then, have a presentation that centers a little bit more on that, next meeting, and not putting too much pressure on Rob, because he's just getting this assignment. But we'll be amping up on that. And that'll be the same meeting we'll be needing to re-up our disaster declaration. So we'll have that. And I also just wanted to mention, as far as the county, we've got a list of things that we need to be doing, just county government itself. So everything from retrofit of our restrooms, some of them we have the no flush, urinals, and we're going to look for the low volume toilets and those kinds of things where we don't have it. The outdoor watering, we've talked a lot about, and you did pass it, no outdoor watering lawns.
No watering of lawns.
Right. So that has a major impact, and we've been talking about that. We have, like at a standard park, we do have a well there that can keep that park alive. But a lot of our other parks, and folks have to get prepared for that, places like Pioneer, Park, Ditson, Patterson Field, up in Tuolumne, we have some major lawns, even here at the Courthouse Park. Yeah, the Courthouse Park. I was talking with Supervisor Brennan the other day. This is probably a good time to go ahead and do some of the retrofit of the Courthouse Park during this period, and actually folks would probably appreciate that. Conservation in those terms, also, again, no watering of our vehicles and those kinds of things. And I did tell Tom and his staff that they can look at Standard Park, our well, because it's a high-producing well, as one resource that they could tie in, to their system. And one of the major needs for wells in that area, for example, was SPI, so we can have water on their log decks. And we're as close as anything with a high-producing well. So I haven't signed anything over, just so you know, but just to go ahead and look at it to see, how we could tie in and be part of the solution, which I know a big part of that is looking for a source of water for SPI, which I know is a high priority of this board. So those are just some of the other things. Those other water companies, private well users, and then the county itself will be stepping up. But I think one of the best things we can do is to just really reinforce what's being said. Everybody needs to take this serious. Everybody needs to do what they can to conserve.
Thanks, Greg. I'm going to just give the public a brief opportunity here if anyone would like to make a comment.
Good morning again. Tom Trott, Twain Harte CSD. As Mr. Peter was talking about conservation, I just want to give a few updates on Twain Harte. Twain Harte is about, as far as conservation goes, we're using about 25% less than we did last year, comparatively. And part of that is because we don't have a lot of snow and therefore not a lot of visitors, unfortunately. But part of that is we're starting to see conservation coming down. I would like, just for the benefit of everyone here, just to say, one of the things that we're focusing on is looking at small leaks on the customer side. Not that we're going into homes or anything, but we have the capability of reading our meters and identifying where people have leaks. And it's a fairly significant amount of water. I know 50% requires pretty significant lifestyle changes, but fixing a leak doesn't require any lifestyle change. And we've identified about 12% of our water usage in customer leaks right now. So it's, that's a good ways towards 50%. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. Even if it's a small leaky toilet, that's about 3,500 gallons a month for a household, and that can be pretty significant. So I wanted to say that for everyone. And if you can, I know we have dye tabs, so you can check if your toilet leaks, and TUD does as well. It's a very simple way to start conserving.
Thanks, Tom. Morning, Mike.
Good morning. I was debating back there whether to comment or not, but I thought I would. I represent a very small water company. It's a mutual water company. It's called Bellevue Oaks Mutual Water Company. And I come because I'm hearing of the networking, and I will compliment staff. Where's Tracy? Tracy's been helping me. Tom's been helping me at different times. We're one of those small little districts. We have 5 board members. A number of them work. A couple are retired and are working. We have one staff. And I know Tom has heard a few emails from me, and Tracy has heard. That's great, we have conservation measures, and I'm all for that, don't misunderstand me. My concern is it's always easy to adopt the conservation measures. The hard and the difficult aspect is how do you motivate the people? How do you enforce it? How do you price it? And my board has been getting emails from me since about, 2 weeks ago, and they've been getting a lot of reading material over the last few days. The concern I have is that the governor is asking us, through his emergency declaration, to conserve 20%. Tuolumne County is looking at 50%, which I don't disagree with. When I go to the Department of Public Health, water drinking, I get very little information. And that's who we respond to. That's who we report to. And so if there's anything that can be done to motivate, I don't understand why there is that discrepancy, in my opinion. They already know that there are 18 water districts that are going to fail within a week or two. I would think there would be more information even at the state level. And that's where we go for our reporting, our accountability, and our direction. Nevertheless, our board tomorrow night will be meeting, and we'll be debating whether 20% or 50%. I won't tell you the outcome. I don't want to violate Brown Act, but it's a very interesting predicament that we're in, especially if you're a small water district. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other public comments? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. Want a last chance to make a comment? And if not, I'll just make a brief one. As was stated by most of the board and everybody that talked here, thank you very much for being ahead of this and being proactive in your planning. I think that's the key to our ability to get through it. And also Tom and all the other people that are collaborating, Tom Trott, with TUD, that's going to make the difference also, is working together. So with that, thank you for the information. And would the clerk please read our next item?
Number 14 is consideration of approving correspondence commenting on the socioeconomic study associated with the Lake Don Pedro Federal Energy Regulatory Commission relicensing process.
Thank you. Morning, Daniel.
Morning, Daniel Richardson, Deputy County Administrator. Lake Don Pedro, Modesto Irrigation District, Turtle Rock Irrigation District have been engaged in the FERC relicensing process, lengthy multi-year process, so they can continue operating it as is. They have been producing a number of studies, everything from fish studies to water flow studies to recreation studies. The particular study here that we're addressing today is a socioeconomic study, and they presented this recently at in January. Their findings, this is a hundreds of pages worth of study, and their conclusions. What we're doing today is issuing a comment letter on this socioeconomic study, in particular the impacts on Tuolumne County. I should note that 90% of the impacts that they note from society, community, are impacts in the valley. The water receivers, agricultural uses, industrial, and household. And so what we've done is I put together a comment letter for your board's consideration that focuses on what are the impacts to Tuolumne County. And pretty much what the letter says is the impacts of Tuolumne County are not adequately stated. They're understated. We provide municipal services, fire, sheriff, roads, and during the Rim fire, we provided lots of other services to help their watershed so it didn't get completely destroyed. So the letter requests that we meet with them, with Turlock and Modesto Irrigation Districts, to see how the county could be remunerated in some fashion, water rights, money, whatever we might negotiate with them. I gave you an updated letter that more strongly requests this meeting with them. I also put in a better, right now, just let me read this. The benefits to Tuolumne County, they estimate, are an estimated $25.4 million per year in comparison to an estimated total regional economic benefit of $26.8 $9 billion. So we're a little drop in the bucket, even from their calculations. And we're providing the watershed, a location, and services to them. So what's our benefit? So with that, the letter's here for editing.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Just like to make a couple comments. Been following this for a long time, and 40-some years ago when FERC licensed Lake Don Pedro, it did some things in my mind that really hurt Tuolumne County and the economic benefit. And one of them, as I pulled off the road this morning, looking over where Jacksonville used to be and seeing Schoolhouse Hill now being exposed, we had a number of vibrant businesses along that corridor. We had restaurants, bars, Mountain River Lodge, hotels that we no longer receive taxes for, TOT tax, sales tax, property tax. So 40 years ago, maybe we weren't awake enough to recognize the economic losses because we were kind of blinded by the possibility of having this big, beautiful lake right next to us that we could use and stuff. And I do use it, and a lot of people in Tuolumne County do, but most people that come there are coming from someplace else. I don't believe they spend a lot of money in Tuolumne County. They might buy a little gas at the marina. But in reality, as you said, I look at it in a sense as Tuolumne County water, that we receive very little benefit compared to what the overall benefit to the irrigation districts in the valley. So, I'm all for doing what we can to try to bring some of that back to Tuolumne County. Water would be wonderful. Another 20,000 acre feet of water rights out of Lake Don Pedro might solve a lot of our water issues and growth issues. So just a general comment, and I'm certainly in favor of sending a letter.
Sherry?
Yeah, and I have similar concerns with the watershed because this county invests a lot of staff time and a lot of resources in working with the Forest Service on, watershed issues. And we all know that a healthy watershed is critical to, the success of having the lake, with water in it. So I too am really in favor of this letter, and I'm glad you caught the change between the million and the billion, because I listened to one of their supervisors on the webinar Friday at the Aqua meeting up in Sacramento, and he very aptly pointed out that they have a $26 billion ag economy and mentioned Lake Don Pedro in his comments. And I think it really is important for them to recognize Tuolumne County and the part we play in helping water, be available in that lake.
Rutherford?
Yeah, thank you for putting a little punch up front in the letter. This is the time. FERC relicensing is an opportunity for us to re-enter the discussion, and this is the time to do it. We need to be, not just send a letter, but we need to follow up on the letter and contact the appropriate people down there and make sure we get a response that we can live with. This is really important. Again, treating Tuolumne County equitably is going to be a drop in the bucket to their $26 billion economy. But it's the right thing to do, and sending this letter and following up is very, very important.
Yeah, I by the way, thank you for the revised letter. I think it's a big improvement. I had some comments, and I just will withdraw those, but you don't have any carbons on here. Who else are you going to send this to?
Well, I was just noting that right now. Greg Diaz is the MID FERC coordinator. I'll also recommend I'll get the TID name as well, their FERC coordinator. And then, do you want to send it to state and federal representatives?
Well, I know that both McClintock and Denham will be interested in this, and I suggest you send it to both of them. Jeff has had, Congressman Denham has had his representatives here during room fire. I think they understand the importance of the Tuolumne County aspect. They used to be our representative as well, and certainly McClintock does too, and I think it wouldn't hurt to get Barry O and Bigelow involved too.
Send it to Feinstein, too.
Yeah.
Well, Feinstein too, yeah, you're right.
She's got a real interest in that watershed, so you make sure that
Yeah.
our senator gets it.
I got a question. Where are they at in the FERC process?
They have a very significant filing they're going to do in April, and I need to talk to council to see, because they've been trying to figure out when does council get involved, and so we need to have that discussion. They're concluding their studies.
Where does our consultant, our outside counsel?
We don't have outside counsel on this particular issue. We have
Not
water
on this,
counsel.
but our water counsel.
That's a potential.
Well, if we're going to consider water council, we're going to have to increase our budget for them to assist us. Chris Schmidt in our office has been working with Mr. Richardson on this matter, so I know he's aware of it. And I'm not sure if we know what what stage they're in, but I think he's aware of when we would need to file an intervener.
And that's exactly what we've discussed, is when's the appropriate time to file, if we want to.
Okay. I think it's important to look at this, and this is a good letter. I support it. And it never hurts to be the squeaky wheel. But I would also be interested in having legal eyes that have a focus on this type of thing, looking at it. I know there's a cost to that, and we're on, a budget with limited resources, obviously. But in the light that this is on a track to move forward, and there's only a limited period for opportunity, I think that's something to consider. So maybe if staff could look into that and then get back to the board to see if it's something that we'd recommend or not, that'd be helpful.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? Because I was under the impression that if the time comes where we choose to be an intervener, then that would be the point where we might be looking at additional water council.
Possibly. I know in the past our office has actually filed the motions to intervene ourselves, but so certainly we could. And of course, any time that we believe that's a recommendation would certainly come to this board for approval before we would take such action.
Is there any other comments, or can I get a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the letter as amended.
Second. Okay, I've got a motion and a second for in Handvelt, and I just realized I didn't ask for public comment yet, so is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any discussion on the motion? If not, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Could the clerk please read item 15?
Consideration of approving an agreement with AT&T for AT&T Switch Ethernet services, sorry.
Daniel Richardson, Deputy County Administrator. The county's network it connects all of your various facilities for computer purposes. We have a pretty much seamless communication between all offices, but they could be improved. And today's action is to enhance these services. It will enable communication improvements in a variety of buildings, particularly between county administration would receive an enhancement, county IT, Tuolumne General Medical Facility, Human Services Agency, Public Defender, and Probation Department. More agencies, departments within the county government are using hosted services, meaning we go to the internet to access important data. And so we need to improve our network. Some of the benefits we'll receive from this, first of all, significant cost savings. An annual cost savings of over $50,000 across all these various network connections. Also, we see increased employee productivity as they're able to use the network in a more efficient manner. We do see this will facilitate collaboration between justice departments. Right now, because they can't communicate quick enough through the network, many of the documents are passed hand to hand. They're paper. This will facilitate better electronic communication between them. And also, one of the biggest things is your phone system upgrade. This is going to allow that to take place. And we've seen recently our phone system is old and it needs to be replaced as soon as possible. We did receive bids from, we went out for 3 major companies. One of them isn't viable yet, CVIN, Scenic. Hopefully they'll finish their product soon. AT&T was the winning contract. They have the lowest bids for the best service. So we'd request that you go with AT&T, and I do have a signed contract. We did get that this morning from the East Coast, so we'll be the last signer on it.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, just a question on the changeover. If CVN is available and they end up being the ultimate best, the terms of this contract, are we locked in for any period of time here?
36 months.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other board questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Bring it back for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contract with AT&T.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other comments on the motion? Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Could the clerk please read item 16?
Consideration of approving a revised social media policy.
Daniel Richardson, Deputy County Administrator. The county adopted a social media policy probably 6 months ago. That was taken from Kings County and I believe Tulare County, a number of counties. We looked at also Napa County's social media policy, saw some features in it that aren't in ours, and in particular, Napa County's social media policy, it adds the ability for staff to monitor and delete and potentially comment if there are posts that such as profanity, using sexual content, political advocacy, things that we would deem not appropriate for our particular social media, be it Facebook, Twitter, feed, whatever it might be in the future. And so this allows staff to monitor daily, which we are doing right now, but allows us to actually do something about it. Before we did not have the ability to delete. We're also talking with county council about, what are our legal responsibilities for public records and deleting things versus leaving it on there. So we'll be consulting with them when we haven't had to do this yet, but we're preparing in case it did occur. Well, it will occur. It's just a matter of when. So we put we also added some copyright language in there, and we also separate out some additional responsibilities. What is IT's responsibility versus what are the department's responsibilities? Because some of your departments have Facebook pages by themselves, such as library, recreation. So what are their responsibilities? So those are the additions we made, and we'd recommend that you amend your social media policy.
Thank you. Questions? Public comment? Bring it back for motion.
Mr. Chairman, before I make a motion, I see we're back here, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing, particularly when we're how shall I say, breaking new trail, at least for us. I suggest that we approve this, and I'll make that motion, but I'd like to have them come back and tell us how we're doing 6 months from now with this policy.
Sure.
So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Any comments on the motion? Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could I, in the interest, I know our Veteran Service Officer would be fascinated about our budget and stuff and policies and all those things, but he'd probably appreciate if we could take number 19
Yeah, let's
before we
do
get
it.
to that.
Could the clerk read 19?
Consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the Veteran Service Officer to issue identification cards to qualified veterans.
Thank you. Mr. Larson.
Morning, members of the board. I'm Eric Larson, your Veteran Service Officer. And we're bringing this resolution to you this morning to authorize our office to start issuing county veterans identification cards for veterans within our county. This comes from special outreach money the state gave us to try and attract more veterans into our office. Many aren't aware of the services that are available through Veterans Services. And a number of counties have already issued cards like this. They're useful for veterans. Most veterans only can get a card if they're retired from the military or they're receiving veterans benefits, but there's a vast number of veterans that don't qualify for either. And so if we can issue cards like that, they'll be eligible for benefits that are available through various companies out there that give services to veterans. And hopefully we'll get new veterans in, because many veterans are eligible for benefits they're not even aware of. And when they come in, we can confirm that they're a veteran, and then they can sit down with our representatives and maybe find out if they're eligible for some state or federal benefits. And this issue was brought up to the board's Veteran Services Committee earlier and approved by them.
Yeah, this is really, I think, a very good thing that we need to be doing. There are a lot of veterans out there that do not qualify for otherwise for a identification card identifying them as vets, and there's a lot of just local businesses that offer services to vets at a discounted rate. So it's really important. Other counties are doing it. It's no real cost out of our general fund, because it's going to come from the money that we're getting for our outreach programs. So I fully support it, and I'd be willing to make a motion when it's time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Handel?
Yeah, simple. This is just a no-brainer. Let's get it done.
Perfect. Public comment? If not, let's get it done.
I move on staff recommendation.
Second.
Second.
All right. Ladies first. Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back and finish. Let's see, is there any other ones we want to jump ahead? What's that? Yeah,
If
we
you'd
can
like, you could
finish-
do 21, 22, 23, take a break, and then we could,
Get into 17, 18?
yeah.
I like that. Let's do it. Yep.
Consideration of approving correspondence to the governor to restore the agricultural education incentive grant program in 2014-15 state budget.
Thank you. Hi, Vicki.
Good morning, Chairman Royce, members of the board. I'm Vicki Helmar, Agricultural Commissioner. During your January 21st meeting, you requested that a letter be sent to the governor requesting that the Agricultural Education Incentive Grant Program be restored to the fiscal year 2014-15 state budget. When Governor Brown unveiled his proposed budget in January, he eliminated this grant program. Instead, Governor Brown proposes to include that funding in the local control funding formula for school districts. This program provides $4.1 million statewide to agricultural education programs. Sonora, Somerville, and Don Pedro High Schools receive funding through this grant program. The funds our schools receive are used to purchase, upgrade, and expand the facilities and equipment necessary for students to gain experience in and the understanding of Tuolumne County's agriculture. This program is known for the hands-on training, leadership development, and college preparatory credit it provides. Specifically designed, state funding helps incentivize school districts to invest in and approve agricultural programs. Once agricultural education funding loses its identity as included in the local control funding formula, it becomes vulnerable to competition from other programs and is subjected to future budget cuts. Our high school districts feel strongly that this funding needs to be identified outside of the local control funding formula and that the Agricultural Education Incentive Grant Program be restored in the state budget. Now, the letter that you have in your packet, I have a few changes to that. If you'll take a look on the first page, the fourth paragraph, the first sentence has 4 X's in it, and that's because at the time I didn't have the total student population that we have. I would like to replace those 4 X's with 249 students, which is 15% of the high school student population. The other change I would like to do is I forgot one of my CCs, and that is to our superintendent of the Big Oak Flat Groveland School District should also be CC'd on this. I have given a clean copy to Alicia so that she does have a copy with those changes. I'm recommending that your board approve this correspondence with Governor Brown to restore the funding for the Agricultural Education Incentive Grant Program in his fiscal year 14-15 state budget. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just a clarification, since I don't have your copy. Are you going to state that that's 15% of the high school students?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's important.
Yes.
This is a big deal for me, because I know I've talked to some of the teachers that do this, and I think it's important that people know that this makes a huge difference in the viability of the program, in my opinion. And I agree with everything you've done here. I appreciate that. I would like to ask you to copy our 2 teachers, one at Somerville and Sonora High, on this, so that they know we're doing this, as well as the Farm Bureau.
Okay. Vicki, yeah, I applaud the letter too. And having served on a school board for the county school board for a number of years, we never were, involved with high school budgets. But watching, budgets are always difficult. And I applaud the high schools for wanting to make sure that those funds are dedicated and that there can't be a temptation, at some point in the future for that to be messed with and the programs lose. We know that what the ag economy is in the state of California, and quite honestly, there are a lot of good ag sector jobs that, there's a desperate need for a workforce out there. And so I wholeheartedly support this, and I'd be prepared to make the motion when it's time.
Okay.
Would it be worth CCing CSAC and RCRC on this letter as well?
RCRC is.
RCRC, okay.
RCRC is supporting this.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll just tag on to the previous comments, what Supervisor Hanvelt said on the last item. It's a no-brainer. Let's do it.
I would like to comment that I personally spoke with the superintendents of the high school districts, not Joe Silva, but the other superintendents of the high school districts. And although they can appreciate having money in their local formula for discretionary purposes, they by far really strongly urge that this money not be taken out of the incentive grant fund.
Okay. Public comment? Not. Call for the question.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the correspondence with Governor Brown to restore funding for the Agriculture and Education Incentive Grant Program in the fiscal year 2014-15 state budget.
Okay, motion second on the floor. Comments on the motion. Call for the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, could the clerk please read 22?
Consideration of recognizing unanticipated revenue in the amount of $6,000 from the AB 109 Trust Fund into the probation budget, probation services revenue line item, and a corresponding increase into the travel, training, and seminar expense line item.
Good morning, board members. Adele Arnold, Chief Probation Officer. As you know, back in our original AB 109 grant, we received $42,250 in our training budget, our allocation, to train current staff and newly added staff on realignment issues. To date, we have about $41,000 remaining in that fund that we can use for anything related to training. We have a SB 81 Juvenile Offender Detention Grant Program, and we recently received an SB 1022 Jail Construction Grant Program. And we are in the planning stages. In fact, just this morning I am in a meeting with our architects on some finishing elements that need to be discussed and decided on for a juvenile detention facility. We were made aware by our construction manager that there is a American Jail Administration Conference that will be taking place in April in Dallas, Texas. And in addition to a lot of very pertinent and germane training, there will be an exhibitor's floor where we will be able to go and meet with some of the companies that will that provide products for institutions, both juvenile and adult. So we think that is a very good use of this money for us to go and be able to see some of these projects. We have not yet decided on some of the elements. So for that, I'd like to use some of this training money. I have queried the executive committee of the CCP, and they are unanimously in agreement with that. The money was not budgeted in any of our budgets this year. It remains in the trust fund. So I am before you to request a transfer of $6,000 from that training fund into probation fund so that we can make arrangements to attend. That money is journaled out as we spend it. So if we don't spend that entire amount of money, it stays in the trust fund. But we are willing to gather all the receipts and turn them in so that they can be paid out of that if that money is placed in probation. So I am before you to request permission to transfer $6,000 into probation, training and travel so that we can attend this conference. The attendees would be the jail commander, Mo Frank, and myself. And then out of my probation budget, I am also taking Linda Downey, my juvenile division manager, as my backup, and that will be paid with our training fund.
Thank you. Questions? Public comment? Bring it back to the board.
I assume the sheriff is okay. I move on staff recommendation.
All right.
Second.
Oh, I think he
got it?
Yeah, he got it. Rutherford and Handbelt. Call for question. All in favor? Say aye.
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 All right, we got 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Could the clerk please read item 23?
Consideration of approving an agreement with Trinity Services Group, Inc. to provide food and commissary services for the jail with an annual cost of approximately $410,000.
Members of the board, thank you for taking this item so quickly. Appreciate that. Jim Mealy, Sheriff Coroner. As you know, we have a contract right now for kitchen and commissary services through Airmark. That contract was coming up that it would expire, so we went out again for bid. We were able to receive approximately, we went out to 7 vendors. We narrowed it down to Trinity Services, and attached in your packet is their proposal. Excuse me. I received a text last night from one of the members of the board asking a question on the annual cost. We had budgeted $416,000. Their bid came in at $410,000, so it is a savings of approximately $6,000. We were very happy with both proposals. Airmark has been a good partner with us. It's just that it comes down to dollars and cents, and that's why we're going with Trinity. They've promised us the services that we are desiring, so it is our recommendation to go with them.
Thank you. Questions? Public comment? Bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move on the approval of the agreement with Trinity Services for the jail commissary
Do I have
service.
a second?
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comment on the motion? Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. And with that, let's take a break. Come back at 10:30. Back to order here. Could the clerk please read item 17?
Consideration of approving the modified 2014-15 through 2018-19 multi-year budget forecast and fiscal year 2014-15 budget development strategies.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair and members of the board, this is a follow-up to our multi-year discussion, multi-year budget forecast discussion at your February 4th meeting. You had an extensive packet in December 4th where we talked about our budget policies, our budget process, the multi-year itself. We provided you input from your department heads on what they thought would be worthy high-priority positions for you to consider to restore if funds were available. As part of that presentation, we also gave you an in-depth update on our liabilities presentation in the county, provided some budget data that had been requested by the board in general, and then went into a fairly in-depth report on how we came up with our multi-year forecast. And I'll just, by way of refresher, just wrap up reciting the observations, which is the next to last slide of what you heard on the 4th. And that was, there's only 3 points. The first is that the general fund ongoing revenues are covering expenses in the multi-year baseline forecast by fiscal year 16-17, which means we're very close to having arrived at the new normal after all these years. Second bullet was that traditional road fund and fire fund revenues will not keep pace with basic expenditure needs, and that we need new revenue sources or a major general fund injection to fortify both roads and fire, with emphasis on roads. If you recall, that hole was getting deeper because of gas tax just not keeping pace with the cost of maintaining our roads. And then under major concerns, I offered these. First is how realistic are the revenue projections that are were in the multi-year forecast given the rim fire and the drought. And you heard from General Manager Trott today about that when they were measuring their consumption and how it was already down, and part of that was because they didn't have people in inns. They weren't lodging because we didn't have snow. And that's one of the concerns as we consider our revenue projections. Will Congress extend our secure rural schools and our PILT funding beyond this year? We did have a comment here about bargaining is not concluded, could increase labor costs. While we're not going to talk about it today, we do believe we have a tentative agreement, and I put some numbers in here to reflect that tentative agreement with our last unit. And it's important to not add ongoing costs until we have revenues to cover those costs, and that there are several important one-time costs that were not in the multi-year, covering areas such as the juvenile detention facility, the new jail. We had fire engines, road equipment. I showed what it would cost per year to catch up and get our roads up to a standard, which is something like $8.9 million additional per year. Again, we need a new revenue source, for that, and we still did not have a figure available. We need to do a study to assess what it would take to catch up to properly maintain our existing facilities. So that's just kind of where we ended it. And your board, as part of that discussion, also gave staff an idea of what your top priorities would be to consider as far as high priority restoration positions. And I was to bring this stuff back with a bunch of other information, and that's what we're here for today. So what I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, if I could, is just kind of roll through this and just get through it so you can get the entirety of it, and then we could dialogue on whatever the board so desires. Because at the end of the day, I'm just looking for some broad direction on how to go about working with departments and constructing next year's budget. So up on the screen is where we last left this saga on February 4th, and you can see in the general fund we have a net problem that we're projecting at about $361,000 in the general fund, down to a mere $53,000 in 15-16, and then this is where I make the comment that in 16-17 the lines cross, that we're finally seeing our revenues outpacing our expenses in the general fund. So that's very good. In roads, you can see the problem steepening from a negative $353,000, and then over the 5 years, if these projections are correct, the hole deepens to about 1.2 million in roads. And in the fire fund, not as dynamic, but you're seeing it was 319,000 negative in the first year of the forecast, ending at 366,000. And the combined shortfall is roughly about $1 million for each of the first 4 years, noting that we do have the juvenile facility coming online in December of 15. And then we can almost carry everything that's in there as far as the general fund by the last fiscal year, fiscal 18-19. Now, since this was prepared, there were two things that we wanted to correct. They're relatively minor, but we did find in library there had been a double counting of some savings. So that has the effect, and you can see it down here at the bottom of the sheet. It's about 23,000-ish, and that was a double counting of the PERS savings because of bargaining that was in there. And then we found one cell was not computing in our fire department in the fourth year, and that's a net of the double counting of savings in library and that one cell that wasn't computing in fire. But it still doesn't affect the bottom line. We're still looking at about $1 million across the board with a 261,000 problem in the last year. So that's kind of from where we launch, and I'm presenting now potential modifications to this forecast, which could translate into strategies for the coming fiscal year. So this modification number one builds on the corrected baseline, and it includes the projected impact on the tentative agreement with OE3, that last bargaining group. And you can see that it roughly works out to about $175,000 average across the 5 years. And if you lay that into the numbers in each of these funds, it increases the combined shortfall by that amount. And now it ranges from anywhere from 1.2 million to a high of 1.25 million problem to about 445,000 in the fifth year. So that's just laying in our tentative agreement with operating engineers, those groups. And again, this is only the general fund and the most general fund dependent funds being road and fire. And then modification number two now, this is where I've laid in both the OE3 cost and the high priority restorations that we discerned from the meeting last week. And again, we can revisit all this if we didn't get it correct. I already mentioned about the impact on OE3. The high priority restorations, I've listed out county council, a county council position, an election supervisor position, an animal control officer, and a deputy sheriff. And again, you may want multiples of these things, but there's the cost of those four. And then you'll see the next four positions had revenue associated with them. CRA felt that the civil engineer could possibly pay for itself going after grant-funded projects, so I have no net impact related to that. The building inspector, a little different situation because that was going to be funded through the Rush Creek project, and that would provide funding for about a year and a half, is what Bev had said. So you see no net cost in the first year and half a full year cost in the second, and then full year cost thereafter. My hope would be that the building would be picking up through that period, and perhaps by the time the money goes away, there'd be sufficient business to keep that inspector on board. And then there's just a general assumption that the collections officer and the little change in the treasurer tax collector's office assistant to an account clerk, that those would be offsetting. These are things that I need to sit down with the departments and work that out in detail. But one of the things your board said is if these things were revenue offset, everyone seemed to be okay with putting these things in. So for now, I'm just making these broad assumptions and showing what would be in there. So if you look at the cost of just those positions as on the chart, the cost would range from $364,000 in the first year to a high of $448,000 in the out years. That would increase our combined shortfall in those funds to anywhere, it starts at about 1.6 million, peaks out at about 1.7 million, and then drops to about $900,000. And then the last alternative or modification, and again, these are just things for you to think about. And this is not one that you'd asked for, but it was laced in the multi-year forecast presentation, is what if you, not in addition to the bargaining cost, in addition to the high priority restorations, what about making sure we have the money to meet our juvenile detention and jail commitments? And this assumes that we don't, particularly in the jail, that we don't have sufficient funds to pay for all of the design cost on that. I'm going to have to scroll this up, so if you forgive me, I'm going to, so you can see all of this. So now you have the tentative OE3 agreement cost, the impacts of the high priority restorations, and then it's showing, and again, this is just from the last presentation, bringing it forward to this one, it's showing in the first year, 14-15, we're going to need about $500,000 to fully fund our construction management services. The jail design cost, that would be an additional. We already have a $1 million set aside, anticipating the need for about another $2.4 million. So that's why that's there. Again, if we can secure additional $8,900, that could certainly go down. I don't think it would all go away, but it could certainly go down. In the second year, you see the equipment that will be needed to equip the new juvenile facility. And then in the outer 2 years, you see the anticipated operational cost increase for the jail. So the effect that has, if you look at those as basically commitments, things that your board wants to proceed with, and assuming we don't have AB 900 or something to offset the increased jail design cost or full jail design cost, that would put the first year at about 4.5 million, and then it begins to drop to where in the fifth year it would bring it down to about $1.5 million. So I'm only trying to demonstrate that these, I know, are these are costs that we're kind of committed to. How we exactly fund them, exactly what year, those all can move around. But I just wanted to make sure that you can get the full breadth of what we're talking about, here on those costs at the bottom for the juvenile and jail. We have typically, when it's come to things construction oriented, we've been able to take those out of our ending balances or beginning fund balances and been able to fund it that way. To the extent fund balances tighten and we don't have that kind of money to fund it, it's going to have to come from somewhere, and that could be your operational budget. So it's just something for you to think about. And again, I'll go through this and then I'll come back and we can dialogue about anything here. So those are the three modification versions just for you to think about, and we could modify in whatever way your board deems appropriate. I also just wanted to emphasize that none of those three alternatives builds in future compensation adjustments for future bargaining, and I'm not here to push that. I'm just saying, because that's an important consideration for the future. The other thing that's really important, and I know a number of us listened into a webinar last week, is what's going on with PERS. Right now the governor's been in the press about it, and I'm going to bring this up. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation. You have a copy in front of you. I'm just going to whip through to get to a couple of key points, because PERS is a big driver in our cost. It's a big reason why our employee costs have gone up, and yet the number of employees have gone down. Not the only reason, but it's a big reason. And so what they did is they talked about both the revenue side of things and their investments, and they also talked about some of the assumptions as to their future cost. And again, I'm just going to whip through these things. I'm not going to talk about their investments. There's this one slide here that talks about some of their key assumptions. Prediction about each employee to calculate a cost for their benefits, Some of the key assumptions included investment return, salary increases. That's an area where I'd love to see any updates on our salary information, because I know looking at that with Debbie and Ann and Tracy and I, PERS seems like traditionally overstated what we give to our employees because of the economic times that we're in. We may want to give the kind of increases that they forecast, but we haven't been able to. Also, the age at retirement and life expectancy. These were all things that an actuary takes into consideration. And again, I'm just going to whip through this. This is a chart that shows the increasing life expectancy for both men and women. And you can see the trajectory. This is a good thing, that we're all living longer, but when you have to fund those retirement benefits, that means it's more cost. You can see here they have some mortality. This is really fun stuff to talk about, mortality assumptions. This slide that I've got up right now, page 11, is what the governor was railing about, I think rightfully. He wanted the PERS board to do something about this in the form of charging higher rates now, not waiting to do so. Under the assumptions that the actuary is recommending, it would still increase liabilities statewide by almost $23 billion. And about $9 billion would be for the state, and you'll see that in the My Motherlode article. He's talking about the $9 billion. That's the state's share of that. Then there's another almost $4 billion that would be for schools, and then another $10 billion for public agencies, which could be everything from cities, counties, to various special districts and so forth. And what it would do is actually decrease the funded status of PERS in general by 4%. So right now, what they said in the webinar is that we're about statewide about 74% funded right now, and this would drop it down to 70%. So I think the governor's got a legitimate beef here. PERS is trying to figure, if they're going to increase rates, you also don't want to just surprise people in the middle of a budget year, give them a chance to prepare. But the longer you wait on this kind of stuff, the higher the costs are going to be. So I totally understand, the governor's perspective here. The current board policy is to amortize these things over 20 years and smooth the impact over 5 and have a ramp up in fees. With the first year impact of the cost increase that they're recommending right now not happening until 16-17. And here's what the chart looks like. And I know at the CSAC conference we saw charts like this. And you can see how we're starting. Here we are at the very edge of 13-14, the current year. Under this chart, it would actually show the rates going down in 14-15. I don't believe that's what we have built into our forecast. But then it begins to go up, and there's various assumptions that you could follow, but the general trend of these rates is pretty clear. They're going to ramp up over a period of years and stay high before they will come down. And this chart just goes on. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you could see at the bottom are all the miscellaneous employee costs and the types of increases that you would see. Most of the county's miscellaneous employees are at the bottom of this chart, where you can see relatively minor cost increases. And I believe our public safety folks are in the safety CPO group. I believe that's correct. It may be in the safety police, but I believe it's in the safety CPO, group, and the increases would be, higher. And there's just some different assumptions they're going through here. They were going to talk to the board about ramping up over a longer period of time, amortizing over a longer period of time. And I'm just going to whip through these to get to this chart. This chart, again, this is one you probably want to look at after today and when you can actually study it. The first curve reflects doing a 20-year amortization, whether it's a 5-year ramp up or a 7-year ramp up in rates. It would still be amortized over 20 years. The wave on the outside is talking about amortizing instead of over 20 years, over 30 years. And that's the same dynamic, even related it to a home mortgage. You're going to pay more in interest, if you go ahead and finance, that liability over a longer period of time. So that's what this is talking about. And I probably should just stop here, but it gives you an idea of what the PERS board is looking at literally today. They're talking about this, and it gives you an idea why the governor is saying, charge, the higher rates, sooner, don't wait. So it just reinforces, and the reason I'm just pausing here is it reinforces what we've been talking about with the PERS rates, reinforcing what we've done by way of PERS reforms, both our own and supporting statewide initiatives. But it's a big problem, but it's not just a problem for Tuolumne County. Okay, so that's the PERS. We'd also talked about getting together to talk about some ideas to fund shortfalls, try to find ways to reduce our cost of current operations and employees in order to pay to cover our shortfalls and any new employees. And, we have not had time to figure all this thing out over the last 2 weeks. But certainly, as we do tight budgeting by departments compared to the forecast estimates, again, this is a forecast. This does not have the precision of a budget. And I believe as we do budgeting as opposed to forecasting, this will definitely tighten up. But I believe it's still a good predictor of overall what our budget condition will be. We have talked about exploring an additional early retirement incentive program. How do you reduce the cost of your existing workforce without cutting that workforce? We can look at early retirement incentive programs. We've done, I think it's 3, over the years. They're not free, but there may be a net gain to us if we looked at doing that. And one of the things that we all get nervous about when you talk about early retirement incentives is who you're going to lose and all that institutional knowledge. It's inevitable, but that's something that we would need to consider. And I don't have a presentation, for you today. We were talking about various ways to do it, from everything from a set amount of money to helping people out over a period of time with their medical premiums until Medicare kicks in for them, because that's one of the big things that slows people or makes people stop when they think about retirement. Also exploring, looking at the primary workers' comp program versus our current excess coverage that we have with workers' comp. We don't know that there's great gains to be made there. Right now what we do is we basically pay most of the cash ourselves, and we have a lot of cash set aside, so we make most of the payments ourselves. But large claims were covered with an excess layer of insurance under workers' comp. If we were to switch to the primary program, then the insurance would cover most of those dollars. We would pay very little initially, but your premium is going to be a whole lot higher, and we still have to have money set aside for the liabilities that already exist. Do I think that is going to be a good option? I'm not, going to put any money down on that yet, but that's something that we would look at. And one of the other parts of the workers' comp fund is it does give us a pot of cash that helps us float our cash needs with the county. That's different than budgeting now. Now we're talking about cash flow, and I know that's an important thing for Debbie as she manages our cash. We've talked about net funding county departments to reflect vacation probabilities. The term vacancy factors, were used. We do budget vacancies or turnover when we are aware of it, as we're budgeting year by year. We have not built in vacancy factors regularly. We have tried that in the past, and there's only a handful of departments where they have enough turnover to where you can do that with any comfort. But as I say that, as more jobs, as the economy heals and more jobs become available, and pay increases become more prominent out there, we will see a lot of our staff becoming more mobile and leaving for other employment. And then the other thing that we're going to start to see is more of the baby boomers retiring. So even looking back at history, that's not going to be as helpful as the economy picks up. And again, job opportunities become more plentiful and more of the baby boomers retire. We will start to see more turnover, and we'll have to plan in a way that we haven't in the past. The other thing is a cost-saving incentive program. I'll need to come back with you on that. I have put to my peers throughout the state, what kind of programs do you have to incentivize departments to save money, and maybe perhaps allowing them to keep a portion of it for one-time or ongoing, types of things. I do have an all-points bulletin, out to my peers. I have not gotten anything back as of today, but I'm sure I'll receive some things back, and I can share that with the board. We've tried that in the past, again, with some mixed results. We also have a program that's in the handouts that I gave you. Something we haven't promoted as much as we could. It's been a long time since we've given an award, but it's called the Employee Incentive Awards Program. And this is to incentivize not the department, it's to incentivize individual employees. And the one that will always stick out in my mind is a good example. We actually gave cash awards, the board did, to our fleet services team because they were doing retrofits of our equipment, our snow plow blades and things like that without going out and having to purchase or contract out the services. And they were clearly saving, the county tens of thousands of dollars. So that was one of the more substantial types of awards that we have given, but it has been a very long time since we've done that. The philosophy has been during this last several years when it's been hand-to-hand combat, just trying to mitigate, what we've been going through, is to, we're going to help each other out with savings versus exclusively crediting savings to a particular department. But we certainly have given credit as part of the budgeting process, and one of those, for example, was with the Sheriff's Department. And again, it's been touted rightfully many times how the sheriff made the choice to, let's get out of providing the kitchen services ourselves, let's contract. And that was a great win for the county. And I do recall working with the sheriff and trying to make sure that he saw some benefit, from that savings. One of the other things we had talked about was a study of our prior year fund balances, and I do not have that completed. We've completed a draft of the difference between our year-end fund balance estimates and what actually happened. I have not had opportunity to sit down and go through those with our auditor controller. We're almost done with also, that's one way to look at the world. The other is looking at budget to actual and what happened. That's a different look at the same issue, and what can we learn from that. Those numbers are not done, and we have not been able to sit down and look at those either. But again, why some of the variances, the numbers that I've seen, I would still say that there are some extraordinary, we've been through some extraordinary times with many unanticipated changes due to the economy and state and federal budgeting. We've always had surprises, hopefully to our good, because we're conservative budgeters. We do have some departments where, just due to their size and the way that their business operates, that they're more likely to see fluctuations, in their costs in particular. And then all the departments chip in on a regular basis, trying to be as conservative as they can, watching the spending of the dollars, and trying to bring in new revenues where they can. When we talk about fund balance, next week we will have our mid-year budget review for this fiscal year. It is not ready to distribute. We have not had a chance to review those numbers, but based on just downloading what the departments have given us, in the general fund, we're talking something less than $300,000. Now, it'll be interesting when I come back to you next week, because we're going to go in and look at that and refine it, and there will be some changes. Just taking the raw data from departments, it would suggest we'd only have about a $300,000 fund balance, and that's in addition to our contingencies, which sits at about $1.2 million, right now. And then I believe in roads it was something just in excess of about $100,000, just to give you a feel. So based on that early blush, and it's still an early blush, we do not feel that we're going to be seeing a large carryover balance next year. When it comes to fund balances, because that's part of what we've talked about, how can we manage some of these things? For example, it's your board policy to use one-time money for one-time things. And we have gone ahead and assigned our transfer out to our capital fund as a one-time use. But in that capital fund, sometimes we do have something that we're building, and other times we're just doing major maintenance in there. So there's kind of a mix of what I would call operational and also capital. But we have done that in the past, and that's part of what your board has done. So you could do that, continue to do that in the future. But other than that, keep the fund balance available exclusively for one-time types of things. You're going to have to fix that. The other way to go, I've given thought about this, and again, I'm giving you a lot of information. We can back up on, we'll need to back up on all this stuff. But something you could consider, so we don't get caught in an analysis paralysis thing, trying to study this too much, is if your board was interested in this, you could modify your policies to allow up to 1% of your operating budget to be supported by one-time uses. So it's a risk, but it's a modest risk. I'm just giving some options. And in the general fund, which is about a $59 million fund, that means, just as a matter of policy, we could fund up to, say, $600,000-ish of ongoing operational costs using one-time money such as your fund balance. And that would be a measured risk. If we did that in addition to covering that capital, transfer to capital, which is a mix of true capital versus ongoing maintenance, kinds of things, we may be, have greater risk out there than would appear. And then lastly, I had been asked also by one of the board members to provide information on departmental expenditures over the last several years since 6-7 and FTEs, and been asked to allow that to be reviewed by the auditor controller. I'm fine with that. I'll provide that at another point. It was just background information anyway. It's not a central point of today's discussion. So anyway, that's my follow-up from what we discussed last week, and I know we need to go back and take this thing apart and get direction from the board.
Just because I've actually gone through a similar period to what we're forecasting with the county staff. Early retirement incentives are really a good idea when you're in a situation where you have a preponderance of your staff as senior, because it allows you to smooth over the cliff, if you will, when everybody retires in a 2 or 3 year period. And it allows you to smooth flow that so you don't have a one-time drop-off in experience. I'd be very interested in a staff proposal on how we might do that. I think it's really important to make sure that in something like that, that department heads have some kind of an input on who they could afford to lose and who they couldn't afford to lose. And in some discussions that I've already had with Ms. Batista with respect to that, there are a couple of ways that you can implement that, obviously. One would be at a certain age. And again, the health care, I think, is the premier concern of people making the bridge until they can get on Medicare. But you could have it at a certain age, or you could just open it up to anybody at a younger age, but cap the number of years that you're going to cover that health care. So just a couple of ways to do it. But I'd really be interested in what kind of savings we might be looking at. I know it's probably not going to be anything in 2014-15, but it'll be more and more as you go out into the out years.
Terry?
Yeah, and this is so hard because we can all see the deficits here, but I think under the impact of high priority restorations. This really isn't a restoration, but I have real concerns that the county does not have access to good biological opinions. And in the year 15-16, the forest is going to be redoing their land management plan. And it's going to be our opportunity to coordinate with a big C. It really is our only opportunity to sit at the table. And it's going to be very fundamental that we have some really good biological information and help. And so, again, this is hard because, at some point, you sift through this and you have to prioritize, but I would like to at least see that on the list so that it's considered, especially in those, like I said, when we're looking at the forest land management plan being revised, and the projection on that is 15-16, I think.
I want to just apologize to Supervisor Brennan. I mentioned I was going to put that on the screen so you could all see that. Just to grab a number, I would assign maybe 50,000 to that because there's so much natural resource stuff and healthy forest stuff, and
it has so many implications.
yeah, we really won't know because it'll be basically on a retainer and used as needed. But that's what I would use as a planning number.
I do think that we need to start looking at some of the very high priority restorations and factor them in early into the budget so that we I don't think the highest priority restorations really we need to make some budget decisions assuming that we're going to put some of these people back in.
I'm looking at this and looking at the numbers, and I'm thinking, we're kidding ourselves. We don't have the money to restore them unless we cut drastically somewhere else. And I'm in favor of putting them all in there. But I still haven't seen where the money's going to come from, how we're going to fund it. And we may be just kidding ourselves and going through an exercise and saying, again, in a few months, we don't have the money. Go ahead and try it, Mr. Pedro. I just, when I look at that $4,474,000 combined shortfall, that's a big number. And, where's it at?
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, and again, the reason we're going through the multi-year is preparatory to the budget process. And $365,000 is, if you're looking at the 4.5 million figure, 365,000 is peanuts. What I'm advocating is that we use that as the starting point. If in the process of doing the budget we can't pay for them, then we start stripping them off where needed. But every year when I was sitting out there, and every year I've been sitting up here, we've started with a big red number, and we've gotten there, okay? And all I'm saying is let's include those in the big red number that we're starting with, and let's work through the budget process the way we do every year, rather than work to another number and then not have money left over to pay for them.
Well, I agree with Supervisor Rodefer. If there's things that we think are needed, they ought to be in the baseline, and then if we got to cut them, we got to cut them. But I got to tell you, right now I'm really concerned about Ms. Batista in an election year not having sufficient staff to handle an election. And I don't even think that can wait for budget. I've said that before. I just got to say that again. We have other functions that are hurting bad. We got to find ways, creative ways, and I need to study this a lot. But I think some of the data you said you're going to go get will be helpful in looking at where we need to do things. personal experience says that early retirements do in fact help. There's sometimes a short-term pain, but they do help in getting budgets down going forward. And so I think there are no sacred cows, if you will. I think it's the serious business. We got to do the best we can with what we got. I understand limitations, but we have to be more creative going forward.
Go ahead.
Okay. Here's what I think I'm hearing so far is I'm here on this modification number 2, and that would be your operating priorities is, what we have today, make sure we incorporate, if we do indeed have tentative agreement with the last unit. I'm not hearing anyone argue that we don't put these other, we try to find a way to get all these high priority restorations in. I would add to it the $50,000 for the biologist. And basically you'd be sending me on my way to work with department heads to look at all those things I mentioned, from the early retirements, to, I don't know if I have to list them all off again, but just the general type budgeting, early retirements, workers' comp, looking at vacancies, still see if there's incentive, that we can do. This team knows how to do this, and these are the smallest numbers that I've seen in a while. This is a big number, but it's the smallest we've seen in a long, long time, and I have some confidence that we can knock this thing, down fairly healthily. The other thing that I hope the board would support personally, I'd like us to leave our policy with regard to one-time funding and fund balance alone. All you have to do is say, if you dedicated that alone to juvenile and jail for the next 3 years, we're going to need every bit of it, whatever it is, and maybe more. I would say try to leave those fund balances alone and any other one-time funds that we get for that. And I will be coming back. This is an iterative process. Supervisor Rodefer is correct. This is the beginning part. We're just trying to, what's the vision? What's the strategy that your board wants to follow? That's why we do our mid-year budget, reviews. We'll start working with departments on this. We'll be doing the homework on these cost savings ideas. And then something that we'll do this year that we've not done before is we will bring a nearly cooked proposed budget back. You'll have reports and all these things as we get the information, but we'll bring back a nearly cooked budget, which hopefully can incorporate this stuff, or if we're having difficulty, you'll see it and you can give us direction. But you'll be able to look at this and say, yeah, that's what we want in late May, or if not, then you can give me direction and the department's direction on how to make modifications in time for your June proposed budget. So if I'm stating that about right, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Do you want some input from?
Sir, I'm sorry.
I've got a list here. I was waiting.
I'm sorry, I skipped you.
Before you, yeah. So let's see, I got a list, so I'll just go through them. There's no particular order to it. But the first thing is a cost savings incentive. And what I see that you have here is basically an incentive for individuals, which I'm okay with to some degree, but I also want to see it pursued for a department. And depending on how that's structured and what it's comprised of would determine whether I support it or not. But I think it's something that needs to be included as probably an individual agenda item for the board to consider, and maybe get some input from department heads first. Incorporate this as part of it and let department heads oversee it to some degree. If there's a savings, there's money to pay for stuff like this. So I'm okay with it, and it motivates employees. But that needs to be thought about more than just here. Early retirement, as far as that, I'm okay with early retirement program, but I think the way I'd want to pursue that also is the same thing, more information. I would like to see us maybe put together a proposal for an early retirement program, and before just approving it and having employees apply for it that's already approved, maybe have a program together and then do a survey to see which employees would commit to pursuing that, and then bring it back to the board to show what kind of losses we're going to have based on employees, and then what kind of a financial impact it would have based on the actual.
Right. And that's how we've done it in the past. We've usually structured a program, got tentative okay from the board to put it out there. asked for interest, so we can do just that kind of analysis before we say, yeah, we're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you brought it back and said we're going to lose 5 department heads and, you know, we're going to replace them and it's only going to save us 40 grand, probably going to say it's not a good idea. So, but I'm interested in seeing what you can get out of it. As far as there was supposed to be some information on total department expenditures and so forth, I understand why we don't have that yet, but that will really help me a lot. And looking at this material, it's difficult to just look at a chart with the deltas for each line item and not knowing what the impacts over time, what the trends are to revenues and expenses, and how we're getting to those deltas. I don't think I need line item detail that goes all the way down to each department and what each department's budget is comprised of. At some point, I like to see that material, but just to know, you know, if we're looking at, you know, right here, a $1.3 million hole, is that because our costs went up $1.3 million, or because our revenues are down $1.3 million, or a combination of the two where they're both going up, but one's going up more? It's nice to see that, and also, we're looking 5 years ahead here. In the future, I'd like to see 5 years back too, and look at the whole, like I said, the trend of where it's going. If we're going up, we're going down, we're going flat. Really helps to make a decision. I know that's more work for you guys, and, you know, as realistic as possible. If you can get that information as we move on, it's helpful for me. One thing that we didn't talk about is reserves, and I know we have in the past. And I know we tapped into those at one point, I think, in the Tuolumne General Hospital days, and with the declining economy, we haven't gotten back to refilling those. Part of my strategy that I've wanted to see, and we've talked about in the past, is actually replenishing those reserves to a degree that is consistent with our policy, and I think it's, I don't know what the
5%.
5%, yeah, and I think we're at 2 or 3 or something like that.
Yes.
So that, especially as things move forward, and, you know, 4 or 5 years down the line, revenues start to climb, we need to replenish those before we just spend all that money. And then there's been talk about the positions that we're restoring and some of the strategic positions. One of the comments has to do with revenue generating positions, and I think as a priority that should be something that is looked at for positions, but I would like to know what percentage of the cost is actually covered by the revenues. If it's 10%, that's pretty insignificant. If it's 90, that's, you know, where's it at? And that's a hard thing to lock in, but just a general idea would probably help. And then as far as the year-end fund balance, it's another difficult thing to pin down. All I know is we have had a pattern of having substantial amounts of savings at the year end, and I think it's important that that money is on the table for the board to look at and allocate. I know that we have really important uses and needs for it, like a jail, but I want to know, you know, if we can count on that or not. Like I said, there are trends that are or patterns that have reoccurred, so I want that to be considered. And then the one thing I heard you talk about is one-time money, and I would say no, we do not want to, my position, we do not want to fund operating expenses with one-time money, period. But the definition of one-time money needs to be very carefully considered when we're talking about that. Revenues from year to year to year that continue to be there, but if they're budgeted lower than what they are, doesn't mean that it's one-time money. It's just it wasn't budgeted money. So that needs to be looked at. And then besides that, as far as positions, I think I understand what both kind of the positions regarding those are. And yes, they're very important. Yes, we need them. But if we have a $4 million hole, it's unrealistic to think we're going to fund those. We're going to have to get to balance somehow. But as far as the process, as Rutherford said, we're just looking at a 5-year projection when we get to actually budgeting. I guess for your benefit, knowing those are priorities is fine in my position, but I don't know how we're going to pay for them either, so. Food for thought.
Just a final comment, I do agree with the one-time money issue. We should spend it on one-time things, not ongoing expenses. That has got us by the last few years in some really difficult times by sticking to that philosophy, and I think we should continue to do it.
Thank you. Any other, Carl?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly concur with the one-time money. I also concur with Chairman Rice's observation that we need to define that very tightly. I would encourage our budget process to try to do what cleanup can be done to make our budget as accurate a forecast as possible so that we don't have large fund balances at the end of the year. Again, it's all in the definition of one-time money, but I wholeheartedly concur if it's truly one-time money, we ought not to be spending a dime of it on recurring cost of business.
All right, I'm going to give the public a chance to comment here since we haven't yet. Is there any public comment?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Ken Catano, Assessor Recorder. And I just have a quick observation about the early retirement program because I'm all for early retirement for people that qualify. And it was a good program for the people in my office that took advantage of it last time. However, it did not smooth things over for our department. We lost 3 people out of 17, and that was 1 appraiser, 1 clerical staff in the assessor's office, 1 clerical staff in the recorder's office. And the thing that makes early retirement work is not hiring people back into those positions. That's where you save the money. But that's where you also hamstring the departments, which will then go on indefinitely with no replacements. So you could restructure that and have replacements at lower rates.
Yeah.
But the big money savings is when you don't replace those people at all.
Just attrition,
So
yeah.
there's good and there's bad in that. There's ways to soften that blow, too.
Yeah, I don't think our intent was to not fill the positions. Our intent was we have a cliff coming of a lot of senior staff is going to hit retirement in the same 5-year window. The intent was to allow some of them to retire early, if they so choose, so that we could hire in more junior people and grow them over time so that we don't have the entire county staff walk out the door, like I said, in the same 5-year period.
The problem is that those people that are eligible are not distributed equally between all departments either. So you may have more in certain departments, and then you lose more experience in certain departments because there's more people that qualify in those.
And that's why I would be very interested in the department head having a vote in the process.
However, it would be hard for a department head to say no to someone, hey, we need you too much, even though you qualify, we can't let you go. The difficult situation to be put in.
Excuse me, Mr. Caetano, but that's done all the time in the private sector. Early retirements, you apply and you either get accepted, you don't get accepted by the critical nature of your position relative to the business. And we'd have to do the same thing. I mean, look, you can't afford to lose everybody. You just said that. But maybe you can afford to lose a few. it's not a good thing to have to make these decisions, but you got to smooth out this process because our age demographics have gotten way out of line, just way out of line. And so let's stick our head in the sand. Let's wait till everybody just decides they're going to retire and let them all retire all at once and then have a bigger problem. I mean, you got to smooth it out some way. So,
Right.
yeah,
And-
there
and
are
we try to
issues.
be
There are
equitable.
issues. You just got to think through it and make them work. And no one wants to see any of our intellectual, institutional treasure, if you will, and that's what it is, disappear on us. But you got to face reality. It's going to on you, whether you like it or not someday, so let's smooth it. We've got to find a way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Just a comment, if anyone else is coming up, but I do have a department heads meeting actually Friday, and we'll be talking about this. And some of these are not new issues. We have the struggle every time this comes up. There's the pros and there's the cons and the difficulties and the fairness and the equity and all those kinds of things. And I'm sure we'll have some of the same kinds of discussions at that meeting. And we always listen to the input, and try to come to a good group recommendation.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other public comment. Is there anything else from the board? If not, I think you got our input. I don't think you're asking for any action.
As long as I'm reflecting back that this is accurately, these are the priority positions that you're looking at with the addition of the contract biologist in here. Don't have the magic for the money, but I've got homework assignments, besides from just the normal budget process, certain things we're looking at, and we'll come back and report back to the board. We want to keep the one time for the one time. I heard loudly, we'd like to work on a definition, there more. But where this thing will really come together, when it really will come together, is when I come back to you the end of May. And we'll be talking about it before, but the end of May, before it's cooked, here's where we're at. And is this what you want? And if not, how would you like it modified? And that direction at the end of May will be what shows up in your proposed budget in June.
Awesome. Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Could the clerk please read 18?
Consideration of approving the 2013 fourth quarter board goal report.
Staff report.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll make this relatively brief. We can dig into any of the details that you would like to. But this is the last quarter of last calendar year, and I'll hit some of the highlights. And again, you can dig into anything that you would like, but would be seeking your approval of the fourth quarter status report at the end of the presentation. First, in the whole health arena with the healthcare reform and integration goals and sub-goals, you'll note scattered throughout there are a lot of completeds or high percentage of completeds or things that are coming up to wrap a lot of these things up early in this calendar year. So I think Ann and her staff are doing a great job in delivering each of these things. So I'm just going to summarize those first two pages that way. In the area of solid waste, top of page 3, we were talking about trying to explore incineration, options, things like gasifiers and all those kinds of different technologies. And there is a field trip that's going to be planned for this coming spring, so we can look at this. And again, the whole emphasis here, what we do today is going to set the course, for several years down the road for the future of waste disposal in the future. Under your fire goal there, 2D, Insurance Improvement Strategic Plan, talking with Josh White, I know I've had several members really asking, where are we on this? Because there's still people struggling to either get insurance or hold on to reasonably priced insurance. And Mr. White said that he is working with the State Fire Marshal's office with the intention of using them as our entree into the Insurance Commissioner's office, so we can have their support to look into these issues. Because again, it's not just Tuolumne County, it's a statewide issue, appropriately so. So that was the thinking, and just spoke with Unit Chief White just a couple weeks ago, about this as well. In the IRWIM, on the moving to page 4, 3B. You're aware of, the project list was, we had 75% of that funded. Been told that that's being increased to 100% on that list by John Mills, who you all know. I haven't seen that yet, but he's told me that is so. And of course, your board has been working on the whole JPA documents, and that'll be coming to a town near you soon. So don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We've talked about the FERC relicensing today, hugely important, and we'll try to take advantage of every opportunity we can, as this mentioned, so that we keep ourselves in line for comment opportunity. On the memorandum of agreement, have re-engaged with Board of Supervisors and hope to have a draft process completed by the end of next month, and then bring it forth through Natural Resources and ultimately to your board. On top of page 5, mitigation of air pollution control regulations. Again, this is an ongoing goal. This one I just wanted to highlight because it talks about CARB issuing regulatory advisory and directed staff to develop a number of potential changes to their regulations. And in November and December, CARB held a series of workshops in which Tuolumne County Air Pollution Control staff participated to gather input from stakeholders on specific changes, and Air Resources Board hearing to finalize those amendments is scheduled for April. So Vicki and Bill are all over that, like a tick on a hound dog. I see her shaking her head, yes. And a lot of general plan activities. I know your board's been seeing those in the last few meetings. Just wanted to then highlight, we did talk about the Department of Conservation, I think at the last meeting. So a lot of this stuff is very fresh. So your board is familiar with those, that progress continues. I wanted to mention at the top of page 7, under broadband, you've seen the progress on CVIN and so forth, and we know that Comcast is really beginning to saturate the market more and more. But something that came up at the economic development meeting the other day is they were really touting this workshop on April 24th. It's a regional broadband summit that's going to be held up at Black Oak Casino Resort, and they're going to be talking about a lot of what's the latest and greatest in broadband planning and policy adoption. And Daryl Slocum was speaking on behalf of ATCA, who's sponsoring a lot of these things through the Central Sierra Connect broadband project, and that's something I thought was worthy of mentioning to your board. Under the retention succession planning under organizational stewardship, I have asked department heads to prepare something they can submit to me on anticipated retirements impacting key positions in their departments over the next 5 years, and information on potential plans for backfilling those positions. But as I've said before, that kind of information needs to be kept confidential. Otherwise, you won't get that information to work with. But that request has been made, and I'll follow up with that with department heads in the coming month or so. Under our labor agreements, we've made great progress, and again, we hope that we're turning the corner and we'll have bargaining done with all of our groups here shortly. In the legislative platform, mainly wanted to mention particularly on our Bill AB 923 with Assemblymember Bigelow. That is officially dead right now, but Kathleen Half and myself have been talking with Larry Cope, who has inroads. Imagine this, he's got inroads to people on their economic development side of the legislature, and we're looking at maybe going through that door rather than the door that we've been knocking on as a way to get to our direct access as an incentive for economic development. Juvenile detention, again, a lot of work been going on there and getting plans ready for submission to the state and getting a construction management firm on board. Again, the great news about the SB 1022 grant application in December, and it'll be an important meeting next month to find out if one of the other rural counties may give up their AB 900 funding. That's critical to us. And I know Amador in particular, they're completing an analysis of alternatives as to how they could possibly make that project go. That's probably the greatest opportunity that we have, that if they don't proceed, then that's our best opportunity of securing some of that AB $900 to match up with our SB 1022 grant. And with that, I'll just make that serve as my summary and see if there's any questions.
Just a quick question. With the MOA that you're going to be working on with the Forest Service, I just want to be real sure that we distinguish between what are the general practices and the upcoming forest land management plan.
Right. It's a general process from working with them. The forest management plan
Is different, and I just want to be sure that we're very clear
Yeah.
with the agency.
Absolutely. Reiterated that with Susan the other day when I met with her.
All right.
And
Thank
again,
you.
all this stuff will be vetted through Natural Resources on its way back to the board.
Just one question on the airport water line. Can you just give me a...
Daniel.
I'm really not, with the statement here, I'm not real clear on whether it's good news or bad news.
Sure, no, I think it's good news. Daniel Richardson, Deputy County Administrator. We met with the FAA, and initially, a FAA employee who's now retired gave us response that the waterline extension did not qualify to receive FAA funding. When we described the project to the newer employees at FAA, they questioned that interpretation and are giving us a new interpretation. So hopefully we can get that funded with our AIP, FAA funding.
All right, thank you. I move we approve the update.
I'll second.
Aye.
Aye.
Presentation by the Tuolumne County Commission on Aging on their 2013 achievements and 2014 goals.
Carlton. Good morning, members of the board, and I'm Carlton Penwell. I was the chair of your Commission on Aging for the past 2 years. Accompanying me today is the 2014 chair, Laura Lee Brown Marcus. I will go over briefly our activities and accomplishments from last year and answer any questions you may have, and then Laura Lee will have a presentation overviewing the goals and objectives we're going to undertake in 2014, and she'll have a special handout for you. It wasn't quite ready for inclusion in your packet, although everything that I will discuss, as I think you can see, is in your packet today. We follow the legislative model, much as you do, and that is to have policy development and goals and objectives and monitoring done at the commission level, at the full commission, which meets monthly. And then the work is done in committees, and the committees have grown over the last few years that we've been doing this. We had 7 active committees last year, and we have actually added another one for next year, but I'll leave that to Laura Lee. In your packet, you'll see our 2013 goals and objectives. There were 24. There were 24 in 2012 as well. And we got lucky or good in 2012, and we did all 24 of them. This past year, we did good, but we were not perfect. And you can see the little scorecard there. Overview for the year, we completed 19, and we started 3, and we didn't start 2 of them. All of the major items, things like the Senior Expo, Leadership Tuolumne Seniors, the Volunteer Recognition Program, the Centenarian Luncheon, those types of items, we did them all. I'm not going to go item by item. I'll leave that to you if you want to pick out one to elaborate on. But you can see the Legislative Committee did good solid work last year. We thank Lucy Tyndall for that. The Education Committee had a full slate, and both Stan Forrest and Malcolm Cardin chaired that committee at times. In Community Relations, Kathy Peacock has done a great job. She happens to be in the room today, and year after year, she does a fine job doing things like the volunteer recognition program and the Centenarian Society Luncheon. I know most, if not all of you, have attended one or both of those events, and they're pretty special. Transportation Committee was headed again last year by Tyler Somerset. We really appreciate his involvement and what he brings to the table in terms of being a real transportation expert. The Senior Expo was chaired by Kathy Bramlett last year. Again, another fine job. It's grown over the last few years. We have several hundred people attending, a full room at the John Muir Building of booths and exhibits. It seems to be becoming a rather popular event. And we, after 4 years, yes, Laura Lee will tell you we're going to do it again. The Leadership Tuolumne Seniors Program, which was developed within the commission, it finished its second year, and we're especially proud of that. We had another class of 12 people go through, so we've had 24 total to date. And you know a lot of the names, and they're getting involved. A couple of them are on the Commission on Aging. One of them is a member of the Sonora City Council, and you go on and on. They're making an impact in the community, and in part due to this program that takes a look at what are you going to do with the rest of your life. It's not retirement planning. It's when you come to the point where you realize this aging process for an individual like us is not going to be the same as our parents or grandparents. Well, that's the time to start thinking about the opportunities and the insights, and that's what this program is about. And again, we had another successful program there. The last committee is our Executive and Finance Committee that does the internal affairs of the commission. And as you can see by our little tabulation, we had a pretty good year, in part to the committee chairs, in part to the commissioners, but also to a number of you in this room. You've been to our commission meetings and been a participant. We really relish that opportunity when you all come, and you're welcome anytime because it's your commission. But we appreciate that. We appreciated Sherry Brennan being our board liaison last year. And Tracy Riggs has been our staff liaison, and we certainly look to her for help at times. But in Craig's office, in addition to Tracy, Daniel Richardson has been a resource, and you can always count on Christina to help us out too. In Sarah's office, Carlin Druvdahl has been just a wonderful resource to go to, and she's answered a lot of questions and helped us out there. But Ann Conley was in the room. She was a presenter at one point, and Debbie Batista has helped us out when we started getting money and we needed to talk about having a credit card and the financial aspects. Chris has written some articles on us, and back when we did some aging workshops, Jim Garaventa was helpful in Cable 8. So it's a team effort. The commissioners certainly, you also, and then we have some resources. I'll leave it at that and just let you know that I think we had a pretty good year. I served as your chair for 2 years, and the bylaws say 2 years in a row is for succession is what you want to leave it with, and then come back maybe when you're a little longer in the tooth. But we've turned it over for 2014 to Laura Lee. But before I give it to her, do you have any questions or comments?
I just want to make a comment. You know, being here almost 6 years now, it seems like the last few years there's been a lot more energy, a lot more things going on, and I think our seniors should be appreciative of the work that your group does. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just want to say that I was able to attend real regularly the first half of the year, and then unfortunately with the rim fire, I was engaged with a working group in Sacramento that meets at the same time as your meeting, but I was just always impressed by the amount of energy and enthusiasm of, the different committees and the work that you folks get done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for your leadership, you particularly. I'm fond of the Commission on Aging because I think first of all, we have an aging community, but aging is not for the faint of heart. I know that. And I think that you help a lot with people getting there. The Senior Expo is a wonderful thing. A lot of the other things you do, the leadership Tuolumne Seniors is a great thing because you do give people opportunities to participate and not just go off into the blue, if you will. So I want to thank you and the Commission on Aging for all you do. It's a great job.
Thank you, Supervisor Handel.
I'll just add real quickly, you guys are awesome, and the services that you provide are extremely valuable to a lot of our residents, and I thank you for all your hard work.
How would you know? You're only 31.
I have grandparents. Do you want to say how old you are?
63.
There you go.
Well, we do have some openings. The commission needs to have a majority of its members over age 55, but we do have some younger ones. And without making any particular reference, I'm going to turn it over now to this year's chair, Laura Lee Brown Marcus, who will discuss this year's goals and objectives.
Good morning, supervisors. Just want to pass out the 2014 goals. I'm sorry these weren't ready earlier. We just had to adopt them before we handed them out. So pass these down. The first thing I wanted to do is just introduce myself in the way of saying that, and this will be brief, but by the way of saying that in 1969, my parents brought me here when I was a year and a half old. Although I've just briefly met each of you for the first time, I came back home about 3 years ago, and I wanted to say that my parents brought me up here, right over here on Main Street. My dad and mom had a print shop after working for Harvey McGee for about 9 years. And so I was really honored to be able to work next to mom and dad in that print shop. So I just say this because it sounds like I'm a real local. But, you know, it doesn't really matter how much time I've spent here, because there's a lot of people that we know that's been raised here, never left the county, and have only been to Yosemite maybe once or twice. And you're like, wow, I can't believe you've not been to Yosemite and you've been raised here. And to me, that's not really a local, because it matters how much you've been involved with the people, with the area. And so you could have been here 5 years and been really involved, like all of you sitting here, and that's what I call a local. So I'm home, and I really want to get involved. And the fact that I've been honored to chair this commission this year is my way of getting involved. 41% of all of us in the county are over the age of 65. So this commission, although we've been a little bit quiet at times, is really important to us. And we are here to advise you, and our goals that are in front of you matter to us. We've spent a lot of time creating these goals. We didn't want to make them too difficult so that we couldn't actually accomplish them. But each of them that are on that piece of paper, we hope to come back next year and say that we've done 100% of them. One of the ones I want to point out, and I'm going to point out about five of them, is the new committee. And that's the governance committee. It's being led by Carlton Pinwell. And I want to point that out first because it actually is a good segue into the conversation I was hearing here a little earlier before I came up. And it was about the brain drain that's happening among the county in for-profit sectors, the government, all over the place. People are retiring and leaving this void of this institutional knowledge. And we've got that same issue going on the committee. We've got 12 people on the committee. It's an all-time low for us. We need to staff it up, and I'm coming to you today to ask you to help us do that. This committee that we've created is a recruiting committee. It's a succession planning Not everybody is on the same page about what that means, but what I believe it means and what I want it to mean is just that there are some folks that's been on that committee for a very long time. We hope that they stay, but things may happen where not everybody's going to stay forever, and we know that, and there's going to be new blood on the committee, and we need to be prepared for that. And so this committee, this governance committee, is prepared to go out and just look around in the different districts and say who would be good to help advise us on the aging issues out there. People that are over the age of 65 can be, it doesn't matter about their socioeconomic class. It matters just based on their age. And all of us may need help, and I think Meals on Wheels is a great example of that. You don't need to be quote-unquote poor in order to be a Meals on Wheels recipient. Everybody needs a little help sometimes. So if I could ask you all, and I can send this to you in an email, or you could look on our website, take a look at our roster and see how many of the commissioners are in each of your districts. And if you could then look around your district and see who you might just tap and have a quick conversation with and ask to come to a couple of our meetings, and then we can take it from there. Okay? A couple of other goals that Carlton mentioned, but I just want to highlight is Kathy Peacock has done an amazing job on the Community Relations Committee, and again this year she will be heading that committee, and stay tuned for the Centenarian Luncheon. I've gone for the last few plus years, and I know I see some of you there every year, and please, I'm going to invite you back to that. It is an amazing luncheon where we recognize those that are 4 years, I think 94, all the way up to 100. No, that's on October 22nd. November 20th, right here in this Board of Chambers, in the Board of Chambers, we will be honoring those that do a lot of volunteer work in our community. June 11th, it's the actual 5th annual Senior Expo, and you've already talked about that, but I just wanted to highlight the actual date, June 11th, down at the fairgrounds. And then one of the last things I want to talk about is the Leadership Tuolumne Seniors, because again, going back to that conversation I was just hearing here in the board, when you guys were talking about everybody's retiring because of the baby boomers, and they're not wanting to sit on their porch anymore. They want to get into another career. And Leadership Tuolumne Seniors is a great place to point them to, because you might find some of them actually coming to you to say, we want to help. Because the Leadership Tuolumne Seniors actually guides them to volunteer opportunities in our county. It's kind of a leadership from the chamber, the leadership group from the chamber. It's like that on steroids, because it's you all know about what that's about. So we don't baby them and we don't take them through those steps. We just go, hey, let's get you guys in a room and tell them what opportunities there is for them. So I think the last thing I want to talk about is just thanking you all. You all got back to me like that with your date of when you're going to come to the meeting. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Go ahead.
I don't think I got a question so much as I appreciate you being here and doing this. Succession planning, most important thing you do is maintain good leadership. And I think that's essential to the whole thing. I have often come to the Commission on Aging, and I've said the one thing that I think is most important, because we have an aging population. You said 41%, 65? Whoa, I didn't realize it was that large, but I knew it was big. Our people need to know how to deal with aging. It's really essential, not only for ourselves, but for members of our family. Having gone through that, that's a really, really difficult thing to, if you will, learn as you go. That's not a pleasant experience, and so we need to share those stories, as painful as they are, to help people get through that. And I appreciate that you're giving them steroids. performance-enhancing drugs when you're getting older might be a good thing. No, seriously, but I do notice there is a lot of energy, and I think that's a good thing. And so I encourage people to get involved, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Supervisor. Evan?
Yeah.
Quick comment. I'm really curious about your numbers, the item number 6, where you're going to continue to study the village concept.
Right.
And I know I heard some discussion early on last year about that. And I just want to kind of put a plug in because, the county is going through, revising the general plan. And I just think there is a tremendous need. We talk an awful lot about incentivizing that, but I haven't seen anything concrete that's happened.
Right.
And there is such a need to do that, and I really am hoping that there's going to be that opportunity where we find the place where it really is incentivized. And it was interesting because I met with the Board of Realtors last week, and they talked about that very issue. And, I mean, it gets at, as I understand it, the way you described that village concept, but really, actively finding a way of what that incentive means.
Right. And I think it's, we put on here, we're careful about the action verbs we use on this. But I think this year you're going to see, using the word steroids again, the village concept on steroids. I think it's safe to say, because it was in our public meeting, that Lucy announced that the Sonora Area Foundation gave a grant, an unsolicited grant, just this last week, I believe. So it's pretty exciting, and it is definitely off the ground at this point.
Very excited to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Supervisor.
I want to add to the village plan concept. When I was at the meeting last week, I received this book. I had it before, but I didn't really read all of it. And there's a really nice article in here about Groveland, village concept. And I think all of you supervisors, if you get a chance, read it. And it's something that is pretty exciting and really good for seniors. So looking forward to seeing that happen.
Thank you. Thank you. On that note, we usually do a meeting in Groveland at the Little House every year to try to get some more individuals interested, and we do plan on doing that. If any of you would like to have a meeting in your own district, we would be happy to coordinate that. So please contact me or let me know now, and we can plan to do that. So it just needs to be noticed in advance and everything. So.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
And with that, looks like we're at noon. When we come back, we have a 1:30 appointment. So do we want to recess? I think we'll have to come back for those probably. Unless you guys want to squeeze them out? All right, let's do it. John wants to do it. So could you please read 24?
Consideration of approving initial correspondence to concerned citizens and referring the matter to the Tuolumne County Youth Commission for recommended action by the board.
Carl.
Yeah, I guess this is mine. We all got several letters from some concerned students. And what I would recommend we do is that we refer these letters en masse to the Youth Commission and let them be an exercise for them in staffing through the county government. And along with that, I always believe that when it's going to take you some time to get something done, you owe somebody an initial response. So I'm recommending that staff prepare a initial letter back to each one of these students that says, thank you very much for your interest in our county, and we have referred these to the Youth Commission for their action, and we will be getting back to you with a final response at a later date.
Awesome.
And that's my motion.
All right. Any public comment? Call for the question. Oh,
Yeah,
Sherry?
just one thing. Can we add to that? Is there an opportunity for them to participate in the Youth Commission?
Yeah. add a comment that
We wanna
if they're
invite them to
interested in applying for the Youth Commission, to please do so.
And I will be doing the letter? Fine with
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, call for question, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, I think that's 5-0. These guys aren't paying attention. Could you please read 25?
Consideration of forming an ad hoc committee to make recommendations to update the Board of Supervisors rules and regulations in Resolution 1106.
Okay, so this is something that I put on here. Get that book right there? Can I use that? Here's our rules and regs. Last time it was updated was February 2006, and I think there was one attempt in the meantime to do it, but didn't move ahead. And so I think it's time to update this. I wanted to put a committee together to do it. There's some ideas I had about changes, but nothing too dramatic. So hoping to get a little bit more time with our agendas before we hear the material. And I know there's things like, meeting once a week versus every other week like we do, and just a general update. So I thought a committee would be a good way to do it. That way we get input from staff and kind of a cross-section of people that have to deal with this stuff. So with that, there's a list of who I think should be on the committee, and I'm open for input. So I'm saying fingers all over. I'll start with John and then work this way.
I think it's appropriate that this is your idea, that you actually be on the committee.
Okay, so you're saying you don't want to?
Well, I'm just proposing that
Okay.
you came up with the idea, you should be up front.
I get to make the appointments here. That's part of my job this year, so.
That's what I say.
You decide if you want the
When
committee,
you-
I'll tell you
when
who's on it.
come up with an idea, you should participate.
Yield to the benevolent dictator, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very interested in participating on the committee. I think it's something that we really need to be doing. The only change that I would recommend is, I would recommend that instead of one department head, we have two. I think one of the key people that I would like to see as one of those department heads is Ms. Batista. She participated in the last review, I'm told. And that would make the committee 7 instead of 6.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I too would volunteer to serve on this. I think this is an important thing that we look at. I have several issues that I'd like to put in there. I agree that Ms. Batista ought to be in there, but if you're going to limit to 7, which is a good idea, an odd number, I would like to also suggest that this committee be authorized to ask other members of the staff to come and make specific comments. I have a few people in mind that I think could add to this. The sheriff, for instance. Yeah,
I think he
you're
should
paying
be on the
attention?
committee.
Yeah, you got it. I saw that.
Okay.
So-
Any other board questions or comments at this time? Ask if there's any public comment. Bring
Sure.
it back.
I move to-
Oh,
I have one comment just for clarification. Because it looks like you want an ad hoc committee, so that means that all of the other members of the committee are really just staff, so that this can be ad hoc, non-Brown Act committee, right?
I think
Or
that's
do you
what,
want it to be Brown
when I
Act?
talked with Craig and put this on the agenda, that was the intent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And, go ahead, Carl.
I was going to make a motion. If you wanted some more comment, go ahead.
Go ahead. Make your
I move that the chairman form the ad hoc committee to update the board rules and regulations, that committee be composed of 7 people, 2 members of the board, the county administrator, clerk of the board, the chief deputy clerk of the board, the county council, and 2 department heads, with one of the department heads being Ms. Batista.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor, and a question. The way this is agendized, can I make appointments right now on the other positions once we form it as part of this?
I don't believe so, because that's not.
So we're
what
going
the
to come
agenda
back and I'll
item-
present my appointments?
The next meeting.
Okay, fine. All right, well, with that, is there any discussion regarding the motion? If not, I will call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you only really have two people, well, the members of the board and one department head today based on the motion. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. He only gets named three. The rest of them are all specified, I think.
So can I do it or not?
It's not agendized that way, so I would go
Okay.
ahead and- What? That was in the motion that Carl made. But amend what was written in the document. And again, just for clarification, there's all staff supporting the two supervisors who are
Can-
the actual committee members who will vote.
Okay. So we've got two volunteers here, and I'm okay with that. So can we just,
If you want to do it, Evan, then you can, but it's not agendized that way, so.
all right, we'll just come back. That's fine. I think you know who it's going to be, though. And with that, let's see, we have reports and closed session. So would, we have 1:30 appointment. Could the clerk please read our closed session so we can just come back to that from, or do we have to?
I think because it's specifically scheduled at 1:30, we need to come back in here, read it at 1:30, and then adjourn to closed
Okay,
session.
very good. Well, then,
Are
for now, we
Are
will.
we going to be doing reports today at all or not?
Yeah, let's not.
Okay.
We'll hold them. Let's recess until 1:30.
This is material. Sherry and I was there. Sherry was on the phone.